Oh, it's 10 o'clock. All right. We will call to order the April 18th, 2023 full city council meeting. There is a time limit today. I think it's set by ordinance, 9 o'clock for some reason. Clerk will call the roll for attendance.
Anderson Burgos?
Here.
Bartley?
Here.
Givner?
Here.
Jordan?
Here.
Maldonado Velez?
Here.
McGee?
Here.
McGivern?
Here.
Murphy Ramboletti?
Here.
Boello?
Here.
Israel Rivera?
Here.
Jenny Rivera?
Here.
Tolman?
Here.
Bacon? Here.
Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America. The city of Holyoke.
City Council.
Just housekeeping, Councilor Murphy Ramboletti, her name was pulled first, so she'll go first in voting. We do have Councilor Vacan online, so we need a motion to take roll call votes that for the purpose of this meeting would be
Moved.
to all motions received, to refer items to committee, to remove items from the table, to package them all together, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that way we're in compliance.
This point of order, Mr. President?
Yes, Councilor.
What do we want to, I mean, number one's been on the table for a minute or two.
I did speak with Councilor Maldonado Velez, and we're waiting. We're going to take it up next meeting. It should be,
Okay.
hopefully, have a final for that. Next is public comment. We do have a few signed up for here. Once again, just as a reminder, come to the mic, full name, address. It's a minute and a half. I give a little latitude to that. But around the minute mark, I'll just wave at you. I'm not trying to say hi, but kind of let you know. And with that, first is Steve Superba of 17 Glen Street. Perfect.
Steve Superba, 17 Glen Street. On August 9th, 2021, the second week of Chief Pratt's tenure as police chief, the Daily Hampshire Gazette published an article regarding the excessive force civil lawsuit against the city of Holyoke that was making its way through the courts. This article was specifically about Holyoke's pursuit of summary judgment on a number of elements of the case, including failure to train its employees. Judge F. Dennis Saylor IV decided to deny summary judgment and wrote in part, "A reasonable jury could further conclude that the city was aware that its training on vehicle pursuits and the use of force was inadequate, but nonetheless exhibited deliberate indifference to the unconstitutional effects of those inadequacies." Fast forward 14 months with the arrival of MRI's consultants to do an evaluation on the operations of the police department. What the consultants found was a lack of priority placed on the implementation of any training generally, and emphasized the deficiency of taser training in particular. Tasers were directly implicated in the excessive force lawsuit. MRA paid considerable attention to these devices and made the point that Holyoke Police Department personnel
1 minute.
do not recertify annually, that the lone instructor certification had lapsed, but most importantly, they're in violation of their own policy and that of the Commonwealth by virtue of 501 CMR 8.05. For those 14 months, it is apparent that Chief Pratt took no remedial action in regards to training to correct the circumstances that leave the city vulnerable to civil litigation. Chief Pratt did nothing. Chief Pratt has an obligation to the taxpaying citizens of Holyoke to mitigate the threat of civil liability. MRI observes, the hypothesis could be made that Holyoke, as a self-insured entity, would be more aware of inherent risk and take affirmative steps. They then list some negligent practices of Chief Pratt, which include lack of emphasis on training before concluding, viewed in totality, the systemic risk
Steve, that is our time.
that the Holyoke Police Department creates a substantial litigation hazard to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ashley. Good evening.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Ashley Stacko. I lived at 446 Maple Street, apartment 2R for 5 years. I'm a tenant union leader with the Tenant Union of Western Mass. There has been more than 15 code violations that need to be fixed within 30 days or less by the slumlord, I mean property owner, Alex C. Alex C. incidentally keeps buying more property without fixing what he has. He also rents apartments for free to artists. These artists paint murals that raise property values and our rents. It is not okay for him to be investing in property development without addressing the multiple issues he has in our homes. Please advise your relationships near those slumlords, I mean property developers, who do similar actions. Lastly, for Alex and those who are assisting with the gentrifications of our neighborhoods, property developers should focus on the inside of apartments before beautifying the outside of apartments. Thank you for your time and have a good night.
Thank you. Next is Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Cameron. I live at 72 Congress Ave, apartment 1L. I'm here to speak about the conditions at the building at 446 Maple Street, owned by Alex Swakala. He has multiple code violations. I read them today. It was like 6 pages worth of code violations. He's a bad actor. These are not mistakes of a novice landlord, which he told me he was when I met him last summer. These are egregious and frankly criminal violations. Thank you. Are part of his investment plan to buy property in a city that's about to gentrify and allow people to live in squalor, all while either displacing them, improving the units after he's displaced them, or upselling them and condoizing them, all leading to substantial rises in costs while he allows people to live in squalor illegally. We need first right of refusal, rent control, and an office of tenant protections in Holyoke. And I've got a little bit more time. I agree with the fiscal watchdog about the regulations of the CPA, and formally, when the ward councilor from 2, can I say that, wanted us to have some stipulations on the monies we give to One Holyoke. He was right, and we should not be giving away money to developers, even nonprofit developers, without deed restrictions. All right, good night. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is JR.
Hello, good evening, City Council. John J.R. Rivera, 125 Cabot Street, apartment number 4 in Ward 1, Holyoke. I'm here speaking on the behalf of the very, very dire issue that Holyoke is facing today. I've spoken about this issue multiple times in the last 2, maybe 3 years that I've been attending these City Council meetings, and it's the development of our cities without tenant protections. This keeps happening over and over and over and over and over again. We're here, most of us, are pretty decently wealthy, or most of us are, a good lot of us are homeowners, right? And it's really important to look out for our most marginalized peoples. Those are poor people from residence 1, 2, and a couple other wards as well. We have a duty to protect these people. We need regulations on rent. I know it's illegal, but we need to focus on that here in Holyoke and how we can achieve that in Holyoke by collaborating with our state senators, representatives, and many, many more and others. We can't just say this is the mayor's problem or this is the state senator's issues. This is our issue that we need to face today. People are getting displaced at high rates. These slumlords property developers are coming into our city and really destroying our communities. We have property developers that are painting murals to beautify the inside or the outside of these properties. Yet what's going on the inside? Who lives there? Nobody. In some cases, people do, but they live in squalor and impoverished conditions. We need to do something about that. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Victor?
Hi, good evening. My name is Victor Machado. I'm resident from this beautiful city, 40 Suffolk Street. So I'm here because I was walking in the street in this beautiful city, and I saw this group of people. design the tenant rights. And for me, this is the most important right now. That we can think deeply about the condition that many tenants are living in our areas. And I think if we are makers of law, maker of history, we need to make Holyoke great again, because this is not the condition of the person living, and there's no right like the landlords can rise our rent. Right now we are facing economic problems, but I think we can search and get not the opinion of many others and focusing only on structure. We need to focus more on the right tenant rights and people that are
1 minute.
disconnected from these great meetings. So thank you for having me today. So, and if we are makers of law, makers of history, we need to make Holyoke great again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Carmen.
Hi, my name is Carmen Ocasio. I live at 586 South Summer Street. And the reason why I'm here is because me and my daughter, we've been painting electrical panel on High and Appleton Street, dedicating it to the police officers. And they just had graffiti all over it. You know, like the eagle, it was all a mess. So I'm here to just, because I know people are listening out there that whoever is doing it, stop doing it, because nobody gives my daughter money. We don't get no grants. Nobody gives us money or anything to do this. We do it out of the kindness of our heart, and it comes out of her pocket, and she do work hard for her money. So what I need to also know to let the mayor know that this is happening in his city, and why are they targeting, beautiful art and not everybody's art, especially the Holyoke Police Department. When people have issues, that's the first people that they call. And now it's like, I don't know what's happening here in Holyoke. It's not even safe anymore.
1 minute.
So, yeah, when people start, saying negative stuff about the Holyoke Police Department, this is things that happen, because we wanted to dedicate those 2 panels to the Holyoke Police Department, and they just got destroyed, and now we have to repaint it again, because we was 3 days under that sun painting that, and it's not fair, and the money comes out of my daughter's pocket. She's the artist, so I just want to make clear that, you guys are the city council, the mayor is the mayor, the police officers are police officers, and something needs to be done. Ain't nothing about just fixing something, something silly. That's very important, because that's dedication to our police officers. That's the way we feel, because we don't got nothing against them. They protect us. So they protect the city. So I just wanted to come here because I was upset. And when I saw that, somebody called us up and told us about that. And that's not cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Yolanda.
I'll keep it brief. I'm Yolanda. I'm the artist that does the electrical panels. I just do it because I love to do it, because Holyoke is my city. And we will find out who is graffitiing. We just wanted to let you guys know. And every time they're going to go ahead and do it, I'm just going to paint again and again. I will not get tired. Trust me, I'm a very patient woman. And I don't mind it, and I'll find a person and we'll have a little chat. They want to go ahead and collab and do some real artwork around Holyoke, I'll be more than happy to do it. That's it.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Aaron.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. My name is Erin Brunel. I live at 44 Norwood Terrace. Also have the privilege of being your school committee member at large here in the city of Holyoke. I just wanted to come in tonight to speak in favor of building our new middle school. As you all are aware, The school building committee has been working for over about a year and a half now, diligently, meeting consistently to try to come up with the strongest plan possible, the most economic plan possible that still fulfills the needs of our our middle school learners here in the city of Holyoke. I know we've had failed initiatives in the past. I don't want to focus on that. I want us to all focus on the future. We look forward to coming to you all. Hopefully you refer this order to finance, and we plan to hopefully come to the next finance committee next week. We have a wonderful presentation to present to you all. We've met with many of you, whether it be at the joint committee. I've seen faces at school building committees. I've seen faces at our public meetings. We've had some one-on-one meetings. I encourage anybody to reach out to myself as the vice chair of the school building committee if you have any particular questions in advance of the finance meeting. And I just wanted to come and just encourage and show that we're ready for this, and hopefully you all agree. And we look forward to seeing you at finance. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone online? Lori Belanger.
Good evening, councilors. I'd like to weigh in on the mayor's veto of the CP8 ballot. I understand that there's interest in putting this ballot question for next year's election because it potentially would bring out larger voter turnout. I would call to the councilors, the last sentence in the mayor's letter is a bit troubling to me. I hope you will agree to support the path that will leverage the greatest voter turnout. My interpretation of this statement is the path, in essence, is voter obstruction. By taking it off this year's ballot and adding it to the 2024 ballot, you're obstructing voters this year with a ballot question that has been properly vetted and gone through committee and all the procedures. In addition, has anyone thought about legal ramifications? Can the mayor put this ballot question next year? What happens if there's a different makeup of the city council? Does it go in the jacket, out of the jacket? Is there a guarantee that it will go on in 2024? Those are the questions that I have. The mayor is the chief executive for the day-to-day operations of the city, and the city council is the legislative body. I do not believe that the mayor and or the city council in this situation have or should be taking away voters' rights for this election. There's 7 months to cure and get out the vote. It's a local question, a local election, and early voting. Those are the things that I think would bring a good turnout, in addition to folks who have taken out papers. So those are my thoughts, and I wish everybody a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lori, just address for the record.
Okay, yep. Thank you. 16 Roland Street.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else? Thank you. No one else? All right, so that ends public comment both here and online. Next is communications. We got a letter from the mayor with a veto for the CPA ballot question.
Mr. President?
Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to point out for the benefit of the membership and that I really don't, number one, I don't understand this veto because one, in my opinion, he doesn't have the authority to veto it. So our vote passed 7-6. And if you go to the Massachusetts statute, the operative one being Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44B, there's 2 sections that are relevant here, 3 through 7, as well as Section 16. Both says that it is the legislative body which shall approve these questions. No reference to approval of the mayor, no requirement for approval of the mayor. And the statute says that it'll be revoked potentially with a question in the same manner that it went onto the ballot in the first place. And that all speaks to the legislative body's approval, every section. Not once is there any reference to the mayor having any say over this whatsoever? In fact, if you even look at the ballot question, it even says on the question on the ballot, from the legislative body. And I would also point out, Mr. President, that this is very consistent with the definition section for that same CPA statute, which is Chapter 44B, Section 2, which says legislative body is defined as the city council, board of aldermen, town council, town meeting, or other such related title. No mayoral approval required. Okay, that is no mention under the legislative body. And this issue has come up in the past with other ballot questions that have come before this body in the past. And it's been long pointed out that the mayor has no veto power over the placement of ballot questions. So the most common one that we see is Chapter 53, Section 18A, which is the non-binding ballot questions that go on that are frequently here. And in those cases, Mr. President, the law department ruled, and I'm going to quote from City Solicitor Kara Cunha, January 28th, 2014, that the mayor's signature is not required because Chapter 53, Section 18A required approval of the mayor where so required by the charter, and our charter does not necessarily require the approval of the mayor for something to become effective. As a matter of fact, our former mayor, Mayor Alex Morse, acknowledged in an email to the city clerk on January 20th, 2015, that he stated he has no veto power over ballot questions. And this is consistent when we look at Chapter 43B, Section 11, the state statute relative to charter questions. The legislature specifically excluded the mayor's approval. But where the mayor has been required is the adoption of special acts. And I would point out that under the Massachusetts Constitution, at Article 89, Section 8, they specifically state the mayor and the city council approval is required. So here, where the legislature and the Massachusetts Constitution have required mayoral approval, that mayoral approval has been expressly stated. Here, it's been expressly omitted. And I would point out to the decision holding in City Council of Boston versus the Mayor of Boston, a 1987 case from the 24 Mass Appellate Court 663. It says a statutory expression of one thing is an implied exclusion of other things omitted in the statute. So I would also point out in the context of the city charter, this statute specifically says that this statute stands alone, notwithstanding any other state law. It also excludes all other special acts, and I would point out to the body, and I know the president knows this well, but our charter is governed under a special act, specifically Chapter 438 of the Acts of 1896. And that, I would point out, even if they were going to imply, and presumably the mayor, he doesn't cite this in his letter, but presumably he's acting under his authority in the charter, that is not relevant for this because all special acts are excluded by this state statute. And I would also point out in Section 24 of our charter, it specifically excludes the veto power of the mayor relative to elections. He doesn't have the power in this area. Anyways, not that this is relevant, but I just point this out that the long lineage of all this is that the mayor doesn't have the power to veto unless expressly given that power either in state law or the Constitution. And I would also point out that even the CPA committee, their organization statewide, has said that this can only be adopted by a municipality through a ballot election by the legislative body. So, Mr. President, I think the board, the Honorable City Council should take note of the mayor's veto. That's nice, but he doesn't have the authority to veto this. And the council, through you, should uphold the vote of the majority. And the city clerk, who I know is listening to this meeting because she's the clerk of the council, by law is required, shall place on the ballot upon the approval of the legislative body. So forthwith, I would ask that the clerk make all due haste to get this put on the ballot for November. That was the vote of the council. It's majority, and that's all the law requires. Thank you.
Anyone further? Councilor Bartley.
Well, I didn't hear a motion there, so, but I just want to make a motion to suspend our rules real quick. Just ask the law department if they're listening, if they've had a chance to look into this.
Yep. Motion is to ask legal questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mike, I see you.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Wonderful. Hope everyone's well.
Yeah, so Mike, just through the chair to Mike. Mike, did you have a chance to listen to Kevin's, and have you looked into this issue? And then the third question is, did the law department have any involvement with consulting with the mayor relative to this veto?
All of us in the law department saw it at the same time via an email this morning from the president. And we haven't fully had a chance to absorb all of the salient points that Councilor Jordan makes in his argument. I will say right on point to everything that was covered in his email. Several of us have had a chance to review the arguments, look at some of the legal theories behind his arguments. And we're not prepared, obviously, right now to issue an opinion on this, but certainly we're going to take it under advisement because, as I think most of the council know, we have until around the primary to produce whatever final resolution there is for ballot questions. That's the sort of cutoff date before it has to go to the printer for the November ballot. So that's where we are. But if it's referred to legal, there will be a written opinion provided for the next meeting, I believe.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, so Mr. President, I don't, like I said, I think this is such an important question. I will make a motion to probably table it and to send to legal, but before I do, I just get through, always to the chair, to Mike. Mike, there is a Community Preservation Coalition Committee, it's something like that. The gentleman's name is Stu Saganor. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Stu, you'll be interested to know, Stu was in here, sat right there where Jenny is, for a long meeting, and he's really the guru on all of this. So I'm hopeful that you'll take a minute to talk to him about this. Second of all, I heard what Councilor Jordan said. I read all this before, and all the research was provided. I voted the way I voted last time. I am in agreement with what was said here, but in fairness to everybody, I think I was going to make a motion to just give this leave to withdraw, but I think in fairness, I don't think that's the right motion. I think in fairness that the motion is to table it and to send it to the law department. I do hope, and I heard what Attorney Bissonnette just said, well, we have until September. I mean, so the motion will be, the motion will be to table it, but to send it to the law department for legal to get back to us as quickly as possible, but at worst case, by the second meeting in May, because we've got to get this done, Mr. President, prior to the budget stuff, and we can't let this linger past the summer and into the fall. So that's that. Thanks.
All right. Councilor McGivern.
Just a couple questions, not a debate or anyway. Certainly heard what Councilor Jordan said, and I mean, first of all, we are a special act charter. We are not Plan B. We are not Plan A. We are one of the oldest charters in the Commonwealth, and it takes a while to get into that, but it's important to understand because it does change a lot of things with the charter. To Attorney Bissonnette, Mike, just when you're looking at this, my question is the CPA law itself a special act? Because it's requiring our voters to vote on it. It's requiring monies that are being, coming out of the pockets of our voters, to have a say in it. And certainly the mayor is the chief appropriation officer. And if it is a special act, I think the mayor does have a chance to weigh in. But with all due respect, I heard what Councilor Jordan said, and if it's not a special act, I think Councilor Jordan is correct. My only other question is, if the mayor can veto it, it's before us. And isn't there a clock ticking once it comes to us that we have to vote it up or down? We can't give it leave to withdraw. If we don't vote it down or we don't sustain it or override it, it becomes law. Is there a time period for us to act on a veto?
I believe it's 10 days. The mayor has 10 days to return it or not return it. He's fulfilled his time constraint. So right now, it's up to the council whether to accept the veto or to overturn the veto or to take no action on it. And then whatever was approved would not become law in the absence of the mayor's signature. So at this point, you don't really have a clock ticking as much as you do have an election calendar ticking.
So I guess reworded, it's okay to give the law department some time to get an answer back to us so we can, if necessary, take our vote?
I believe so.
Thank you.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess my concern about this whole thing is that at the time that we were debating whether to put CPA on the ballot initially, we were informed that there were two paths that could be followed. One, that the city council could vote to put it on the ballot. Two, citizens could petition to have it on the ballot. At that time, we were also informed by our law department that whichever way we chose to do it, whichever action was taken in the city, any changes that would need to be made to CPA would have to happen in the same manner. So initially, when the council voted for it, whether the mayor was or was not in favor of it did not factor in, because it was understood then, as Councilor Jourdain has articulated tonight, that it was a matter for the city council to vote to then place on the ballot. And I really sort of hate to see us get into overcomplicating a pretty straightforward situation where we've had a clear vote by the council and we have done everything in accordance with the initial placement of the CPA question on the ballot. So from my perspective, I really feel that the voters should have a right to have a say over any money that is coming out of their pocket and going to city government. And I really, really hope that if we are not going to just simply find this veto letter not to apply here, because I don't believe it does, that if there is the will of the body to send this for further legal review, that we ask that it come back to the next council meeting. This is pretty straightforward. I'm not an attorney, but we had been advised by our legal department on this quite thoroughly in the first vote. So thank you for your consideration. I really want to see our voters to be able to vote on matters that affect them directly and timely. Thank you.
Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you read the mayor's veto into public record?
I was going to get that.
You were okay.
I was just waiting.
I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
So, just quickly for those who are at home to understand what's going on, the mayor sent a communication to the city council regarding a veto order, Community Preservation Act ballot question to be placed on the ballot for November 2023 local election. Dear honorable city councilors, I strongly believe that there is unanimous support between all the councilors, including myself, to allow voters to decide whether to reduce the CPA tax from 1.5 to 1.0 as recommended by the Finance Committee. Goes on to talk about the placing it on the November election. Regarding how the people feel about the CPA, I share the opinion with the council that it is important that we let voters decide. The data shows that the state presidential election has the strongest turnout, and as a result, we'll give a more accurate reflection of what the community wants. I hope you agree to support the path that will leverage the greatest voter turnout, and that's from the mayor. So for those who are at home, we are discussing a veto of the mayor with regards to the CPA ballot question, from reducing it from 1.5 to 1.0. Anything further?
No, so what I got from the letter, it's not that he is discouraging it to come to for a vote at all. It's just, we should just wait till next year. That's all I got from that. I mean, there's more, but, you know, the gist of it, that's it.
Okay, so Councilor Bartley, you had a motion to take.
Well, my first motion would be, I guess we're going to refer this to legal to get back to us. Mike, how long do you need through the chair?
Next meeting.
Okay, so a motion is my first motion is to refer this veto and the issue that Councilor Jordan raised to the law department, and the law department circle back to us with a written opinion by the first meeting in May. That's my first motion.
I'll second that.
Motion is to refer this to legal, along with the email I sent this morning regarding Councilor Jordan's information, to have a legal opinion by next meeting. All those in favor?
Well, the first regular meeting in May.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And my
Councilor-
second motion is to table this.
All right, motion is to table. It's no longer debatable. All
Mr.
those in
President?
its motion is to table, so hold on.
Well, people have
All right.
they have their hands
Yes.
up the pot. I don't want to.
All right, what,
I mean, I thought we were.
you guys yell at me when I talk about rules.
Yes, I agree.
Motion
So-
is to table, not debate.
I'll withdraw my motion for now if somebody's got to.
There we go, okay.
So I'll withdraw my motion.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did have my hand up before the second motion, but I only wanted to point out that the current sitting city council does not have any authority to bind the next city council to any action for a future ballot. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that we can have an opinion on it, but we can't say that would happen with any certainty. Thank you.
So Councilor Bartley.
Joe's got his hand.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
Real quick, just, I think it goes without saying, but on Councilor Bartley's motion, that it includes what the point I brought up, just expands it a little bit. Is the CPA a special act or considered a special act because of the procedure?
All right, so.
Mr. President.
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, real quick point. I think if we just read what the statute says and what has the exact rules for the adoption, I think it exactly answers Councilor McGivern's question. They prescribe the exact procedure. And so it'll be interesting to see where this all takes us in a couple of weeks. We'll look forward to it.
I'm going to renew my motion. Motion table.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We are on to item 3, which is request to approve financing for the middle school. This is from the mayor.
Mr. President, can we refer to Committee on Finance to suspend the rules and take up late filed A and refer that to Finance also?
A, so 3 and late file A as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? A is from Councilor McGivern that the city appropriate the amount of $85,504,592 for paying for the cost of construction of a new middle school, Peck Middle School. So 3 and A to finance.
President?
All those. Sorry, Councilor Bartley.
And this is filed under the finance chair's name, so just as a courtesy, and we know that. So I was going to make a motion to table this, but I won't do that. Because I know it's going to lose. But it would have been nice if we had financial orders that read the city appropriate the amount of $85,504,592 for the purposes of paying costs for the construction of the new Peck Middle School, 1916 Northampton Street, Holyoke, it would have been nice if the maker of the order, not the finance chair, in this case, the mayor's office, it would have been nice if they had been able to get this onto a printed agenda in time for the public to review it. That would have been the reason why I would have motioned to table it so that we could have had it on the next meeting's agenda. $85,500,000, in my humble opinion, is worthy of getting it in a timely fashion to the clerk's office so that it can be on an agenda. I'm sure there's an excuse. I don't think it's a valid excuse. $85.5 million, Mr. President, should be worthy enough to make a printed agenda, even though it was Thursday at noon. Everybody else got their orders in on time, want to file it, and none of us work in the building full time. Thank you.
Councilor Jordan.
At the risk of piling on, I do agree with this point. I get it where things come up over the weekend or, emergencies happen. I think we do need to remind folks, though, this is the exception to the rule. And when you get something as big as this isn't, last minute, hey, it just happened to come up, $85 million for a school over the weekend. I mean, that stuff has to be making it to the agendas for transparency in government, okay? So I would just remind folks of that. We get it. Everybody knows about this middle school thing coming, although I will say the number grew about 4 million from a couple of weeks ago, the discussion I was told that I attended. But anyway, that's okay. But the point is, things like this, for the public's sake, need to be coming on the agenda. Not as a late file that nobody sees and they just kind of through. That's just, I would ask that they just do a little better, please, on those. And we cut these down.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. On item number 3, the communication we've been expecting for some time now, the School Building Committee and our representative, Councilor Tallman, have kept us apprised. Many of us have gone to some of their meetings. Some of us have heard their presentations at the joint meeting of the school committee and the city council. And we know eventually it comes our way, and eventually it's for us to peruse and to understand the proposal itself. That goes with the importance of item number 3 going into the Finance Committee. The presentation, I've been juggling for the past 10 days to try to make sure we could get everybody available, including bond counsel, financial advisor, Cinder McNeary. The April 26th meeting is a presentation, not to vote on the bond, but just to hear the presentation and to open up the discussion on affordability. What it comes down to is we need to know what the project is, what the building committee has done. We need to know that inside out. Their proposal, they have a deadline with the MSBA. They kindly reached out and said the deadline is the end of May, going into June sometime, that we could take this up in a fairly timely fashion to allow for questions, to allow for additional meetings to get answers to questions that cannot be answered outright. So it's a timing thing. And when I saw the agenda myself on Thursday, early agenda because of Monday being a holiday, I noticed that there was no bond with it, or nothing filed that would say what is the actual cost. And I thought at first that was because I heard different, but I thought at first it was because the RFPs have not gone out, even though we know the estimated cost, and we certainly know contingencies, but we don't know what this number really reflects until we know the whole project. So I did reach out to the auditor, and she said that the bond came over, but when it came over, it was late for the early agenda, and there was a couple things that needed to be tweaked because the language is important. The language is done by bond counsel. That's not Cinder. That's someone who works out of the not the same office, but the same company itself. And she worked on it very hard, but it could not make the agenda. And I suggested that we get it in late filed. And I thank Councilor Bartley. It is for the mayor, but it's also for the school building committee and the schools themselves. So with that in mind, I just thank you and understand your concerns. Late files aren't my favorite way of doing business. It's not on for a final vote tonight. We don't even get the vote. We don't even get to debate it tonight because it was just rules suspended to put into committee. And I just ask for that consideration so we can start our initial discussion on a very important project.
Councilor Bartley.
Couldn't agree more. I just want to, we're not debating, but want to point out that if there's a vote, I hope the public realizes they're not going to have a chance to weigh in. It'll be a vote of this body. This body will take the vote on the bond, not the public. Not gonna, unless this body defers it to the public, but I don't think so. So just so we know, 85.5 million on a late file. That, by the way, is an all-time record. That's never happened. 85.5 on a late file. All-time record set tonight, April 18th, 2023. Mark your calendars. All-time record. So that's the first. And second off, nobody's voting but this body. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
I'm glad we're not debating. $85 million, from what I understand, and not just what I understand, but I think we all understand, that the full cost of the project has to be put into the bond. It is not the amount of money that we end up borrowing. The $85 million reflects what they think at this moment is the full cost. It's debatable. What is also debatable is the revenue source. Other revenue sources besides borrowing can reduce that number, and at the moment, the MSBA formula is 55% is reimbursed to the city of that amount of money as it is. I don't like that formula. I don't think it's fair to gateway communities. I don't think it's fair to any community, but it's not the full amount that the city eventually borrows. It's the cost of the project by law has to be put into the bond language.
So just to be clear for those who are at home, item 3 is a communication with regards to the middle school project. Late file A is the amount of the bond that would potentially be needed to pay for that cost, which is non-debatable because it's a late file. And that would be going to finance to,
on the motion,
debate it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is
Motion receive.
number
Or
Motion
four
receive and approve.
is to have the city council minutes of April 4th, 2023. Motion is to receive and approve those minutes unless there's any changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5 is the
Finance.
CPA budget proposal.
Finance.
Finance, all those in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? 6 is the
Motion receive.
fire equipment of the city grant completion form. Motion is to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
All right. Petitions.
Motion to
It looks
suspend the
like
rules.
they're all
and take-
renewals.
Yeah, all renewals take 7 to 14 as a package. That's the first motion, and the second
Motion
motion
is
is
to
approving
suspend the
some of
rules and take up
paid everything.
7 to 14 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
The
Opposed?
second motion is
Next,
to approve them all pending they paid what they had to pay.
reviewing the taxes. Making sure all the taxes are up to, which I did do while you guys were not debating.
We weren't debating. All set?
I was afraid that you were going to debate. So I did it for you. And they're all current. So any questions on any of these renewals?
Only if there was any conditions that those be maintained.
So motion is receive and grant the renewals for secondhand licenses, all with the same conditions that were there, and they are current. Councilor McGivern.
All the same conditions, absolutely, and just one that I would like to, it's a condition, it's actually law, is that any secondhand license that is dealing with articles that they are exchanging, buying, exchanging, paying for, need to keep the list for the police department to purview in case someone tries to pawn stolen stuff off to a secondhand license dealer. Each of these vendors were informed of that. Most of them were aware of it even before they were granted the original license, but that's one of the most key things that they do, and I think we get that message across to them.
Councilor Bartley.
I just want to second that, but I just want to point out that that was indeed an ordinance that we passed filed by yours truly in 2014 with the help of the West Side Police. So I just want to point that out. So those ordinances are helpful. Thank you.
Councilor Jordan.
Yes, also one of the things that we did in that 2014 pawnbroker ordinance, we also spoke to the question about the interest rates that are being charged to the public. And I would remind folks that these are governed by the Division of Banks. And I know there is a 36%, and I know that sounds awfully high, because it is awfully high, that there is a maximum interest rate of 36% on these loans that are being charged to our constituents. And I always do wonder who enforces that, and is there signage or something going up for the benefit of the people that are coming in and doing business and borrowing and loaning their items? Because one of the concerns 10 years ago was that we got a pushback from certain individuals who were like, if I can't charge more than 36%, basically I'm going out of business. And I was like, wow, okay, so you want to be able to charge, I mean, it was like 80, 90, 100% interest. And these are poor people, and these things are located in areas where poor people live, and I don't want to see people getting taken advantage of. And I just hope people are aware of their rights, and that those who are in charge of these things and are policing these things are looking out for the people of Holyoke that are shopping in these establishments, so that they know they're not being taken advantage of. So we have rules on this, and the Division of Banks has rules. Thank you.
All right, so 7 is a pawnbroker license for 448 Appleton Street. 8 is Brad Matthews renewal of a secondhand license at 2225 Northampton Street. 9 is a secondhand license at 448 Appleton Street. 10 is GameStop, and that's a secondhand license at the mall. 11 is Echo ATM at 2261 Northampton Street. 12 is Echo ATM also at 250 Westfield Street, or Westfield Road, sorry. And then 13, Echo ATM for the mall. And then another renewal of a secondhand license at 375 Whitney Ave. With that, pending all conditions, all those in favor? All opposed?
I thought you had a roll call, Todd, no?
For secondhand licenses, no. Special permits, roll call, but we'll do it.
Secondhand license, you need a roll call.
All right, roll call. Clerk will call roll. You're starting with Councilor Murphy Ramboletti.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tolman,
Yes.
Yes.
Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
We vote you approved 7 through 14.
I've never been last, Mr. President. That's the first.
What?
Last voting. I've never been last.
The last shall be first, right, Joe?
Never.
Wow, how about that? Another historic moment.
History tonight.
Wow.
This
Or
is great.
play these numbers: 4, 1, 8, 2.
Hopefully I'll never be first. Don't let it scare you.
There's a time you want to be, Izzy.
All right, quickly, President's report. I did get this notice just recently. There will be a celebrity bartending on Friday, April 21st. Who are our celebrities? That'd be Councilor Murphy Ramboletti, Mayor Garcia, and Anthony Soto, our superintendent of the schools. That will be Friday the 21st at, looks like 8 p.m. start time at Fiesta Cafe. So just let you know in case you want to support our celebrities. Take a nap and then go to do that. With that also, the last one for tonight is working with the mayor. I mentioned to some councilors already about this lovely chamber and its historical aspects, especially the chairs you're sitting in. Working to get it redone, which would be the walls, the lighting, the sound system, and the desks, everything. We had our first initial run through. Well, if you want to take them, they're historic. No, the only thing that they said so far is historic is the railing behind you. This, the clerk, your desk are all from like 1950. The mural, because everyone wants to be able to protect it based on the way they're saying it. And once again, they're going to come in and talk about it, but I want you to have the heads up so you have your questions ready. They're going to strip the walls down and put it all new plaster because you just can't save it. But what they do is they take a picture or video and then they redo the mural. That's how they save it, in theory. So the big question that will come to you after they give us options is, how do you want to have the desks? Is it facing to the public? Is it facing here? Do you want to get rid of this? A lot of different options, but the main theme is redoing the entire chamber to get it back up to where it should be, especially sound system and everything else.
Should we empty our desk out?
No, not. It's going to be plenty of time.
Jumping the gun?
Yeah, we got
Let's
plenty
get
of
it
time.
done
but
tomorrow.
2 years.
It has come back to us.
Could be after the election.
Yeah, you've asked many times as to what we're going to do.
The voters might empty them for us.
Yeah. But there will be, an RFP is going out with regards to design, and then it'll come back to us as to getting our thoughts on what we want to see and do. Councilor Bartley?
No, after you're done with your report, I just
All
want to
right.
add something. Thank you.
Nothing else, Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, just through the chair to the mayor, I don't know if anybody besides Councilor McGivern and I drive down South Street, but on the way to City Hall, but I can tell you that we're very excited to see the brand new, what I believe are going to be sidewalks at the 391 interchange. I've only been talking about that since 2013, and I know there were efforts to do it. I just, the financing wasn't there for whatever reason, so I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying I kept asking for it and asking for it and asking for it. And now, apparently, it looks like it's going to come to fruition. So that's great. Thanks.
All right, so next we're on to reports of committees. It does say ordinance, but it really is joint committee. So this would be item 15. If you look at 15A, B, C,
They're all
D,
complied with.
E, F, and G, they're all complied
Make
with.
a
You wanna
motion
take
to
off this
suspend the
package?
rules, take 18A, 15A to 15G as a package.
Second.
A second.
Favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Real quickly, 15A from the joint committee, from whom it was referred in order that the council invite in the superintendent, mayor, President Royal from HEC to chat about the possibility of collaborating to offer trade certification to adult residents at Holyoke Dean. Recommended to complied with. B is at the school to whom it was referred. The city provide an update with regards to diversity training already in place for employees. That was complied with. C is inviting representatives of Holyoke Public Schools, Special Education Department to address IEP process and procedures. That's complied with. D is at the school, the receiver of the schools, please explore the costs and feasibility of revamping current driving ed classes. Recommend that that's been complied with. E is at Anthony Soto, please provide the city council with specific plan and goals the city of Holyoke Public Schools need to achieve regaining local control. That's been complied with. F is that Anthony Soto and his team be requested to explore steps, costs, and federal reimbursements associated with the reestablishment of the Air Force Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps. Recommend it's complied with. And that the superintendent provide feedback on how the department is handling reports of teachers using words in front of students. Recommended that that's been complied with. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, motion to accept the committee report. So 15A, we had a lot of conversation around this. So the way I should mention, so the way it works when it's on the school side, the meeting minutes are not done soon enough. So I'm just going to be working off my quick notes. And so what I have here says, although they are making a significant amount of investments to upgrade the shops, net school spending doesn't allow for adult education. We'll need funding from the city if they want to see this through. I want to allow Councilor Rivera, the maker of the order, to say a few words if he wanted to from what he got in the meeting?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I filed this order pretty much because we have a school, which is, in my mind, is a great opportunity to help build up some of the workforce here in Holyoke. And for me, even when I was a kid in high school, I always wondered why we didn't offer, or we didn't have the ability to offer night classes to adults to be able to get their certifications in some of the shops that are offered at the high school. So for me, it was originally filing the order, and as you can see, I invited the president, Royale from HCC, or asked to see if she could be invited. And I'm not sure if that got through to the school committee, but that's fine. We ended up having a great conversation, anyways. Which sounds like the school department is, and the receiver/superintendent is on board with doing something or the same form of initiative, but what they're saying is that they can't actually allocate any of their funding towards that because their funding is mostly dedicated to the students' body that they're dealing with right now at the moment. So for me, originally, it wasn't for the school to spend any of their funds on this. It was to hopefully collaborate with HCC and with us, the mayor, to work together to try to build a larger collaboration to see if we can make something like this possible. There are a variety of students that go to Dean Tech, even when I went to school, which this year is our 20th reunion, ironically, class of 2003. But like, there are people that started their certification process while they were in high school and never got to finish it. And now they're at my age, 33, 35, and it would be nice for them to be able to pick up where they left off when they were in high school, when they're at a way more mature age and they have families to take care of. So this is something that is hopeful thinking. I actually filed an order that you'll see later on that has to do with this, talking to them directly to the mayor to see if we can put together a committee to try to work on making this a real thing, or just to see what the feasibility really is about. But the school department let us know that that they have invested a lot into the classrooms, but for it to adjust to adult education, there would be some more. They would need some more investment too as well. So again, this is just preliminary stages, but it was just something to explore for me, because I feel like that's a great opportunity for us as a community to offer to some of our residents, and it could be something to bring people from outside of Holyoke too as well to pay for. If you go and you look for welding certifications or auto body certifications or any of the certifications that are kind of offered at these technical high schools, you kind of can't get them when you're an adult. It's unless you join a union or you have a connection somewhere. So that would be a great opportunity for us educationally and to grow our workforce, especially for businesses that are trying to come to Holyoke.
Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Yep, that's it. So motion to accept the committee report.
So that's A. If you want to go through all of them, and we'll just accept them all at once.
All that, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. We got
E.
package. Thank you. So next one is 15B. So they currently have an equity task force that meets bi-monthly that focuses on inclusion. All teachers and staff get training. They are working to support and promote access and inclusion for all students and staff. So that's the gist of it. But I would like to see if Jose Maldonado Velez, Councilor Maldonado Velez, would like to speak on this.
Of course. Thank you, Councilor Anderson Burgos.
Go ahead,
Thank you,
Councilor.
Mr. President. Yeah, so some of the things, you just mentioned the equity task force. So there is an equity task force within the school department that meets regularly. Monthly. One of their commitments is equity and anti-racism. As many of us know, the work of anti-racism is going to be ongoing for a while. So we do have a contract partnership with this company called Equity Imperative, which talks a lot about the anti-racism and a lot of the work that needs to be done. Unfortunately, it is not translated into Spanish, and we do have staff members in our city that only speak Spanish, so that is one area where we are lacking. But what else was it? It is something where, so Matthew Rodriguez, who's the CEO of Equity Imperative, they understand that, so they are working on translating all the material so that more staff gets access. One of the questions asked during the meeting was, because they're training the leaders for the schools, the next step is to bring it down to all staff, all faculty, and then the question is also to the students themselves. So as mentioned, I told Superintendent Soto that if we're still here next year, like we will put in an order again just to see where we're at with the progress and making sure that we are we're bringing up an anti-racist society. So thank you.
Moving on to Order 15D. So filed by Councilor Puello. So drivers ed classes are currently not offered. They have a resource officer who started an after-school program for students. He has a permit prep program to help students that are interested at no cost, by the way, to the city. It would cost a significant amount of money to offer a driver's ed classes in school. Costs will include insurance, a vehicle, and hire a driver ed instructor. I would would like to hear if Councilor Puello has anything to weigh in.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank the family that suggested this order be filed, and I really appreciate the school department. I think we had a good conversation that day. I appreciate what they said. I appreciate their ideas. The family was a little disappointed. They wanted to see something maybe like during school hours, but ultimately we understand the funding. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
15C, Counselor, that was missed. Just like.
Did I? Hold on.
It's all right.
I can't
we're gonna
stand
take
this
it back.
computer. Like I'm used to I touch the screen. This one just. Yeah.
That's why I asked for iPads.
Now, Dave. All right. So sorry about that. 15C, filed by our Councilor Rivera. Let's see. There was a discussion around IEP and referrals and available space. There are 3 ways to get an IEP referral. One is referrals from an early intervention providers like doctors or a pediatrician. Second is a referral through a school child study team. And the third is referral from the parent or guardian. I'd like to allow Councilor Rivera to weigh in if he'd like to.
Yes, please. Thank you again, Councilor Anderson Burrows. So the intention for me behind this order is a lot of families that I know or have constituents have reached out to me with regards to their IEP process and things that have happened throughout the schools. Things get lost in translation. Sometimes parents are agreeing to things that they don't really fully understand. And at the same time, I myself kind of went through some of the processes with some of my personal issues too. So in filing this, it was exploring plus allowing the opportunity for the school department to put this on video for people and families on YouTube to be able to look back and refer to it. But the process of how they determine IEPs and at the same time how they follow up on the families that are signing off on these IEPs. With the communication that I've received so far, it sounds like they are doing what they're saying with regards to it, but I hear different things from family members throughout the communities, and for me, it's a hard situation with regards to the IEP process, and not just the process, it's just the treatment of the special education population within the school district as overall, because I think out of that meeting it came out to that it was 37% of our student body has an IEP pretty much. That's a huge amount of students within the student body that are facing these issues. It's not an easy system to navigate, and to be honest, to have that large of a number of our students, of the student body, to have that, we have to make sure that we are really focusing on this pretty much as a third of the population. Making sure that we're focusing on providing the services to the best of our abilities, and not just providing the services, but at the same time understanding that if we don't have the services, that we're educating the families on how to receive the services outsource, pretty much. It sounds like that a lot of that is happening on different levels from what they presented to us. I have to say, the school department could give some pointers on other departments when it comes to presenting with slideshows and all the other things, because they came with a huge slideshow with 1,000 different numbers and percentages and all the other stuff. I guess they have the capacity to, because they have the staff to help them with that. But presentation-wise, it was pretty good. They came together. So that was pretty much what I got from it. I might file another order just to have them come back in and give the opportunity to some parents to be able to express their feelings with regards to some of these issues that they've brought up to me. But that's pretty much it with regards to that. And thank you.
15E, I think was next.
So basically, there is no checklist to get out of receivership. The commissioner and the board makes that decision. Best actions to take to get out of receivership, not a checklist. It's a strategic plan that involves the goals and priorities that were identified in the plan. The plan should have been sent to all the city councilors earlier last week. And so basically what we do need to do, or they need to do, they have to work on academics, attendance, graduation rate, dropout rate, and that's just to mention a few. We have, their hands are full, and they're trying to make the best of it, but there is no checklist. And we did speak about the fact that this was already gone over, and when I asked, Superintendent Soto said that there wasn't much of a change. But the slides were given to anybody who was interested. But I'd like to allow Councilor Jordan, Councilor Vacan, or President McGee to speak on this order if you like.
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of points. One is, this is a major undertaking that the vast majority of our citizens want, which is local control of our public schools. We need to bring this strategic plan to life, and there needs to be accountability. At this stage, 8 years into this, we don't need any more meetings. This is strictly, what exactly do we need to do? What exactly are the benchmarks, and how are we measuring to get to those benchmarks? And there needs to be accountability. Maybe the current administration doesn't have a plan to get us there. Maybe the state is not making it clear what needs to be done. But I get concerned when we have something that universally, I've yet to meet too many residents that think state control of the schools is working great, but there's got to be some, right? There's not unanimous opinion of anything in this world. But let's just say the vast majority want it. I think they're owed an answer from the people running the schools that say, if you do X and X occurs, we're going to get our local control back, and that the state is actually going to agree to those benchmarks. Right now, it looks very fuzzy, looks very nebulous, the type of things that bureaucrats love to write in state government. You know, it speaks to sort of directionally and this and that. There's no accountability. There's no business plan. If this was a business, it would go bankrupt, okay? Because there's not enough linear direction. It's like when you're playing in a football game. It's very easy to understand the objective of the game. See that end zone down there? We need to get from here into that end zone. And if you do, they give you 6 points, okay? We don't have that here. And so we're now 8 years into this adventure of state takeover, and no one can even definitively say where the end zone is. And guess what? You will never get to the end zone. And that's why we're not at the end zone, okay? And quite frankly, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that they don't want us to ever get to the end zone. They'll say that they want that, okay? And when I say the state, because the state doesn't want to put out metrics that they themselves would have to hold themselves accountable to. They took it over saying, you can't run the schools, Holyoke. We'll run the schools. Meanwhile, things don't get better. And so they don't want to look in the mirror and say, against their own benchmarks, against their own metrics, we're not doing any better than you're doing. As a matter of fact, I would argue, and I think a great number of hundreds of teachers would also argue, it has gotten worse. Not better, worse. And whenever they start getting fuzzy with the statistics, they start blending different groups of students, they start measuring when people come into school at different hours so that this looks, and they play with a lot of the statistics. The quote-unquote strategic plan needs a lot more firm data points on it, and they need someone from the state to actually say, if you do all these things, we'll give you back your schools. That day has got to come at some point, or we're going to basically surrender our schools forever. And there will not be a specific date in the future with specific goals that can be achieved to get the local schools back. I submit to you, absent that, this city council, and I sure as heck won't be on it, with 15, we'll be 15 years into being local with state control receivership, and we still will be talking about this is what you got to do, and this is in 20 years. No one can believe we're at 8 years already. So we owe that to the citizens, the people who are being paid in the leadership that come here from Mr. Soto down, he's a state employee. All these people running in the state government, hopefully now with our new governor, we'll have a fresh set of eyes on things. I wasn't very impressed with the last administration in a number of ways. But in this particular issue, not impressed. And our citizens, Holyoke, deserve to have control back of our schools. We need to then be held accountable once we get control, that they need to make sure that we have various benchmarks and things that we're responsible. It's not just hand us the keys back. So that's why I filed this order. I think the chairman is correct. I think it has been complied with. The answer is still all fuzzy math, still all fuzzy statistics, nothing definitive, no concrete plan for the future. And it just keeps meandering through until people move on to some other topic, and then we wonder why we don't get local control, which everybody almost universally in this community wants local control back. So hopefully with Representative Duffy and Senator Vilas, they can help to force these state officials, and maybe with Governor Healy, who seems warm to the idea of getting the schools back, and her new administration, we can move the football into the end zone, but we got to know where the end zone is. So thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree wholeheartedly. It's good schools are locally controlled schools. We had a fantastic history of offering good education, and things were, options were there for students and for families. It also meant, local control on the budget itself. And I want to say something not in a negative way, but I want to add something to the list that I think when the time comes, we need an independent audit to review the school budget as it is now compared to what it was and what we get back, because we need to know where we're starting. We're not going to be starting from scratch when the schools are miraculously turned back over to local control, which is important for the purpose of education, which is important for the purpose of controlling and maintaining buildings and facilities, which is important for all the things that public schools are. But we need to know what that budget is. And I'm not going to get into specifics. I mean, I've heard things. I have give the first receiver, Dr. Zreich, a lot of credit, because he came into his chambers when Anthony Soto was his chief financial officer. We used to call it the business manager, and I learned more about the school budget through both of them than anybody. And I give Anthony Soto a lot of credit as a superintendent/receiver. He has a handle on it. He's doing both now. and it's incredible the job he's doing. But we know that receivership took the school committee out of the line item control. The city council never had line item control. And I think the Department of Education had some line item control. And I'd like to see what those changes were, because I remember standing in the War Memorial and being told there will not be one extra dollar spent by the state to turn these schools around. I don't think that's exactly what happened. And the schools did not get turned around. They destroyed what we had, the good we had in the public schools. And in the state, I think the state admits receivership is a failure. They don't want to say that loud, but it didn't work anywhere.
Counselor Vacan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief, but my main comment is that over the last 8 years, we've spent a lot of time and attention on process. And in the slides, the things that drew my attention were the things where we can be looking at measurable outcomes. And I really think that's where the focus needs to be for our students. Can they read? Can they do the basics, the fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic, to go back to the real basics in education? And also have the leadership rated on that same kind of outcome measurement. And I think and what we're understanding generally, that our system has not improved under receivership, it seems to me if we can't have a checklist by which we can accomplish getting out of receivership, then maybe we need to turn it around and say, if in the next year or two, the state cannot recognize any meaningful improvements for the students locally, that all of these resources that have been put into administration, and some of it remote administration, be brought to bear locally, and let folks in the local community take their local knowledge and bring that to the table. I really think at this point, we could do better locally than what is happening under receivership. So my money's on measurable outcomes, because that's really how you know whether something is moving in a positive direction. Thank you.
Counselor Rivera.
For me, I guess I want local control back, right? But I think what Councilor McGivern had pointed out earlier, some of the best schools are the schools that are controlled locally. But if you look at it, some of those same schools that are controlled locally, their local budget actually invests into their school a very high percentage of their town dollars compared to what we do, right? So I would say that we lost control a long time ago with regards to funding, because we're relying on state funding and federal funding to manage our schools. The moment they decide to pull away, how would we fund our schools? We lost control a long time ago. So I want control, local control, voting power control, but at the end of the day, financially, we don't have control still, because we don't fund our schools at the capacity of the level to be able to manage our schools the way that Holyoke once had our schools, when it was one of the best, when you had the great heyday in Holyoke, when it was all the Catholic schools, the private schools, they were all locally funded. Everything was funded by the people that lived within the city, to the extent of when they finally created the Department of Elementary Secondary Education, and that changed everything, right? That was what, 60s, 70s? After that, it changed the whole dynamic of how funding was. There's a lot of history that comes to this, right? We've lost control a long time ago when we stopped funding our education locally. That's the main issue here. So we are asking people that are giving us a good 70% or 60% of our funding, right, to give us control back. I want control, and I'm with it. I go to fight with you guys 110% to go get local control back. But in reality, we got to put our money where our mouth is too at the same time. Like, it's not just kicking and screaming all the time. But I'm with you guys. If we're going to go over there and storm the capital, I guess, right? I'm down. I'm down, right? So at the end of the day, I just wanted to point out that historical point real quick, because that cannot be left out of the conversation when we talk about education in Holyoke. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. And I mean this respectfully to Councilor Rivera, but Chapter 70 isn't, the current Chapter 70 isn't the way the law was originally written. And state aid came into communities based on income accordingly and was allowed to be spent on police, fire, DPW, streets, infrastructure, and education. And our budget locally before Proposition 2.5, the superintendent and school committee wrote the budget, and that was it. And the state said that, you know, with that, the local control of no control also was detrimental to all communities, not just to gateway communities with lower income populations. So Chapter 70, which I give, even recently, give a lot of credit to Aaron Vega and a number of different reps and senators, was finally rewritten to reflect a true formula to the way income-based, and let's face it, property tax is not the right way to generate money to pay for services, but the state is the only body that can allow us a taxing scheme, and the state doesn't want to deal with property tax. They tell the communities, you deal with property tax for the money you need to for operating costs. But we'll deal and help you with education, and we want to help you with education because Long Meadow, we all read the stories of how much extra money they put into their schools. People from Long Meadow, where do they come from? Springfield? People from Springfield moved to Long Meadow, moved to Minnechaug, moved to Wilbraham. People from Holyoke moved to Ward 8. I'm not going to paint that picture any more than what I just said and figure out why Chapter 70 is the way it is, because it's sad and it's wrong. It's not the way it should be, but that's what it's all about. And the state lets that go on and winks and smiles and pays an X amount of our education costs. And I think local control it's still our tax dollars. You know, we could become our own state and in the heyday live off the sales tax at the Holyoke Mall. We wouldn't need government in Boston to tell us what services we want to provide. They don't want to hear that because they make a mega amount of money from the sales tax at the Holyoke Mall, you know, even especially before malls started to change. And it's the truth. You know, they hold us hostage and then tell us we got to pay for these services and this is how you're going to do it, and then tell us we're not doing a good job. We have elected officials, parents, administrators that understand how to operate the schools. And we need to let them have a fair budget. I agree with that. But we need to have the control over, we have a say, moms and dads especially, of who's running the schools.
Councilor Jordan.
First of all, local control is the most American concept since the founding of this republic. You listen to the founding fathers of this country, they insisted that we would have local control of schools. It's a basic principle of subsidiarity that we put those in control who are closest to the issue, concern, or problem, because they will know it the best, right? The reason Holyoke schools and why this city is in the financial condition it's in is because for so many years, the state, especially for gateway cities, but Holyoke is a case study in it, put large concentrations and encourage large concentrations of poor people to go into gateway cities. Not because they directed them necessarily that way, but because they would not enforce the affordable housing statutes in all the communities of Massachusetts. So they would not allow poor people to move into a lot of these other communities. Go to Holyoke, go to Springfield, go to, this is what's occurred. And it's wrong. And then they don't want to support the towns that have the largest need. You want to talk about what type of money that we get, the state isn't doing us any favors. Now it's finally being a recognition that on some of these funding formulas that we're finally starting to get these improvements that the schools have long deserved in funding. But that's because we were radically underfunded for years. And the fact of the matter is affluent communities, they're able to afford because they don't have a 37% special education rate, right? They don't want to deal with the troubles and the problems and the crime and the poverty and all the things that Holyoke receives everyone, because that's the type of community we are. We're for everyone. But not every community thinks like that, right? And so the state is not doing us any favors by giving us this money. They're doing it because these are where the dollars need to be spent. And for so many years, they allowed things to deteriorate. This is why some of these affluent suburban communities are in great financial condition, and we're in absolutely poor financial condition. And that needs to change. And this type of recognition that Holyoke has been getting shortchanged is a message I will continue to emphasize until it gets fixed. I'm pleased that this extra $6 million is going in, I believe it is, for the next approximately 6 or 7 more years for our schools. These children deserve those funds. This isn't, and by the way, absolutely agree. Just like when Washington sends money for highways or different things, they have a right and a seat at the table to say how things should go. But what they don't have a right to do, and they don't do this to more affluent communities, take your authority away, right? Because you're not hitting certain of their benchmarks. Well, thank you, but we're trying to address a high need population that maybe doesn't meet your metrics in all these other affluent communities. And they have now been in charge for all these years. And they want to build a middle school. They're in charge. Are they going to give us any extra money for that? No. We're not even getting the 80%. They have a long way to go. They're not doing us any favors, Councilor Rivera. They're not doing us any favors about this issue of the state takeover. Any money this community has ever gotten from Boston, we've deserved every single nickel of it. Because and I could easily make the case, we have been radically underfunded as a community for years. We have, look at just the police budget alone. Go to a city like Westfield. They have a budget that's less than half of ours, with a population that's greater than ours, okay? We have needs here to make sure our streets are safe for our residents. That's why we don't have all this money left over to go dumping it into the Holyoke Public Schools. We meet our minimum net school spending requirement. We are in no position to give extra. But the reason we're not able to give extra is because of we're underfunded on local aid to this community, based on need versus the amount of money that's received. And we will never generate, unless there's something radical happens in this community in the next 20 years, we will never generate enough locally to meet the capital needs, the unfunded liability needs. The state has an obligation, while it sits on billions, to start ponying up and helping the communities like Holyoke, who stepped up and has always been welcoming of everyone. And I'm proud of the fact that we welcome everyone, right? You don't see apartment blocks in Long Meadow, right? You think they're going to ever allow that? You think they're going to have 37% special education in Long Meadow? Never happen. So, pony up, Boston. Thank you.
Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we're nothing like Long Meadow. That's definitely true. I don't know what they allow or why, but I don't really care. I think that, and I'm just putting this out there, another reason why we've lost control of our schools a long time ago has to do with how we look at education as a city. I'm a firm believer that if we would all send our children to public schools and not spend money on charters and private schools, that we'd get a lot more money in our city school system that would help our city. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know that we don't get enough money to fund our schools, and I think if there was more skin in the game from all families and all residents of our community, it would make a big difference and people would care more. So I just wanted to put out that little tidbit. That's just a personal feeling I have. I've never been for charters or privates. I think they are a real drain on our public school system, and I think they're kind of like a way for people to opt out of taking part in their community and public school system. So I just wanted to share that.
Councilor Rivera.
I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that I'm in favor of taking back local control, just so everyone knows that. That's the first piece. I was never want the state to have, I don't want the state, they had control over my life at one point. Like, no, I'm straight, bro. I think I'm good with that. I've been there, done that. Trust, I know what it's like. So, like, that's not the piece, that's not where I'm at with that. I guess for me, it's just, like, as a body, and not just my tenure, which has been like a year and some change, but it's just like over historically, like I think things have changed over time because at one point Holyoke was designed to house poverty though. Like from the beginning. It's not anybody pushing people in here to say, oh yeah, we're gonna be poor. No, this was designed. You had a couple people that came together. Agree to disagree. The flats in South Holyoke housed who? The poorest people in the city.
The workers.
And right now, who does it house? The poorest people in the city. Hundreds of years later, still the same thing. It's been designed that, I grew up in the flats. I'm just saying, but in reality, like, if you look at the number, the AMI, I believe, is $14,000 in the flats right now. Average medium income, I believe that's what it means, AMI. So at the end of the day, this has been historically designed this way from the beginning. Back then, the schools were good. And there were a bunch of schools throughout the city of Holyoke before the state came in and did all the stuff that they did. Holyoke had a thriving community. Like, there were a lot of schools that they knocked down when I was a little kid. A lot of schools that I've seen knocked down. Somebody just wrote a report that I saw on Facebook about a school, the one that's up by Stop and Shop that they knocked down.
Highland.
I just read a beautiful write-up that somebody wrote about their memories at Highland School, and I heard it was an awesome school. There's a lot of things that went away at one point in time, and I believe it had to do when all the mills left, when all the money left to Holyoke, because we were taking care of ourselves at one time. Once all that left, then something happened, right? But ultimately, I agree with you guys. There are other communities that are thriving on us being down. That is what it is. Just like other communities thrive off of Springfield. And I don't want to name them because I don't want to say it like that, but at the end of the day, yes, we house, like a lot of people come into the community that make a lot of money, but they don't live here. They go back home. And then that property value goes somewhere else, which is our tax dollars most of the time. Most of the time, we're paying certain people a certain amount of money, maybe to over $200,000. They're taking their tax dollars and buying property across the lines. So at the end of the day, that hurts us overall. But for me, if we can grow from in and stay in, then we're good. And that means by reallocating some of our dollars of our budget and investing more money into education to hopefully get the rewards that we're looking for the future in 15 to 20 years from now. That's what it would take. It would be dramatic. It would be drastic. But that's just the way I think, and that's the way I function. I kind of, and again, for Councilor Jourdain, I don't want any favors from the state, bro. Like welfare, everything, I had it already. Like, been there, done that. Like, I don't get it anymore, and I don't need it no more. But like, just wanted to clarify some of that, and thank you for the time. Sorry.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I want to thank my colleagues for bringing this forward. I think it's important that we look at this situation that we're in, and as Councilor Jourdain stated, it's going to take some time. You know, what do we have to do, and how long is it going to take? You know, as you stated, we could be talking here 4 or 6 years from now and still in the same position. We are a community of of believers, you know, a community that has taken in people, all people, you know, no matter what. We service, you know, the people that come here, and we draw people that need services, and it's well known. Can the school, can the local control be better? Of course it could be. Should our community, could our leaders, our people, our mothers and fathers and parents of the students have a say? Of course they should have a say. You know, but I think we have to, as Councilor Jardine stated, and my other colleagues saying, that we have to find a way to get there. You know, how long is it going to take? What do we have to do? You know, clearly we have a new administration. Clearly they seem like they're supportive of it, but what are they actually going to do? Are they going to let us know what we have to do so we can get there? Could it be a year? Could it be 2 years down the road? I mean, this is a great starting point. I'm really grateful that this discussion was taking place and within the committee, and I'm glad discussion we had tonight. It's important, and with our schools under our own control, I think things would be a lot better for the whole community overall.
Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to point out that the sorry, Juan, that the joint school committee meeting was really educational, very informative for me. I didn't understand how having or being in receivership really works. It's my understanding that that Anthony Soto doesn't actually have to hold those meetings or take part. He is available. I think that's a big step in the right direction, and I highly recommend that anyone who has questions or concerns, like the ones that we're addressing right now, simply go to these meetings and ask them, because he does make himself available, and apparently that's not the norm. So, thanks.
All right, so on to 15F. 15F.
So I always tell people that I don't talk much because I hate some of the points that are made when our brothers and sisters are talking. I don't want to repeat that, but you forced my hand tonight and I will. So listen, you all bring good things to this table. This is huge, and I'm very passionate behind this. Okay, so I'm going to take you way back. So what we know about Holyoke was a model city. It was the first industrialized city, I believe, in the world, and it was the first map grid, at least in the United States. We were the richest city per capita because it was planned. The moment investors, business, you name it, saw, wow, this is working. Let's relocate. They all bailed ship. They started moving out. And when that happens, you leave a city behind with people looking for work, starting their own business, whatever you had. You had people in positions where they were ready to fight. Say what you want about Holyoke, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care what side of the fence you're on, right, left, whatever. We're very passionate about our city. We love our city. And I, for one, would love to gain control of the schools. But we really need to look through a magnifying glass and really focus in slow motion how this all came about. And as I mentioned, a lot of you brought a lot of good things to this table, and that is correct. And we could sit here and make points and fight back and forth or whatever, and disagree or agree, whatever. But the thing at hand here is we still want control of our schools. This is a sensitive and complex subject for everybody in this room and everybody in the city. I'm not going to sit here and say, I have the cheat sheet. I have a way out. They say it takes a village. No. Remember what I said about the city and the pride? It takes that, the pride. We need to fight for the people, for the students, for the children of this community. We have to fight for them. They can't do it. Whether we reach out to our representatives, our senators, if we march all the way to the State House, we have to find a way. Now, when I look at the city, I see a lot of crime. So now we're paying officers. Holyoke Police Department, we shovel money. Grades are going down. It's just sinking, it feels like, right? Our car is trying to move, but we're in mud. And we're trying to get out of it. I sat in a room, and as Councilor Givner mentioned, I found out that the superintendent, Soto, now I give him that title because, why? Because I found out he doesn't even have to sit there for those committee meetings. He chooses to. Because that man was born and raised in the city as well. Actually, I shouldn't say born and raised, I just know he went to school here. But he's been here for a very long time, and he cares as well. What I believe to gain local control, and it can be done because I believe Springfield got out of it. Please correct me if they're still in receivership.
No school district has ever gotten out of receivership. No one's made that point tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so that's something that we need to look at. Thank you. Then we need to be vocal, and not just Holyoke. We need to get Springfield involved and other gateway cities, because if this is the issue, then we all have to unite. We all have to fight together to get local control. But in the meantime, one of the things that I thought about when I see children who are struggling in school, who are having hard times, it's services. These children have seen some, okay? Some things. I've heard horror stories from principals that tell me what these kids see. I can't even imagine being that little and then trying to focus in school. So services to the children and the families, that's where we start. And again, I'll be happy to march right up to the State House and demand that if they're not gonna help us get out of receivership, then allow us to gain control of our schools. Thank you.
Councilor Maldonado was.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to I wasn't going to speak, but Councilor Anderson Burgos just mentioned sort of services, and I think that's the biggest sort of situation here when it comes to like local control, making sure that if and when we do get local control, what other aspects of the student's life is being taken care of so that we don't end up in the same space. So that means access to housing, not just housing, access to making sure you're in a heated apartment, you're in an apartment that's cold in the summer, you're in an apartment that feels safe. Access to jobs for the parents, making sure that they're able to take care of their kids afterwards. You know, we mentioned a lot about people living off the government. I don't think anyone wants to do that, but if that's the only sort of opportunity that's laid out in front of you, you got to do that and take care of your children in the process. Access to food, access to safe parks, you know, so many other aspects to just this one question when it comes to local control. I am the same page where we do want the local control, but I also want to make sure, again, that we don't end up in the same thing that got us to where we are today. And I do want to echo, you know, it is worrisome. We have been lucky with the receivers that we've gotten, including receiver Anthony Soto, where they have been attending our meetings. They have made decisions based on what the school committee or what other members of the committee are saying, but that doesn't have to be the case. We can't have a receiver that literally just makes decisions on their own for the school system. So yeah, I think we're on the same page. Let's get this school back, but also let's make sure that all aspects of the student's life is taken care of in the process. Thank you.
So with that, off to 15F.
Yes, this was filed by Councilor Puello. So it says here, and this is regarding the JROTC, excuse me. So the survey came back that 501 North Campus students were surveyed. 54% of them said definitely no. 4.7 definitely yes. This one's a little tricky, by the way. And then there's a 23% leaning no, and then a 17% leaning yes, and that's to the North Campus. And now we have, so 123 students at the Dean campus took the survey. 73% of those students said definitely no, 27% definitely yes. But there was no leaning yes or no at that campus. They also looked at the process of starting a JROTC program, and they did mention that you need to apply. You can't just start up a JROTC program. One of the qualifications starts with the students having an interest in the program to begin with. I will like to allow Councilor Puello, if he'd like to speak on this order.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the good report. I thank you for sharing the statistics too. I appreciate it. I do want to foot stomp and point out that that's, so at the high school campus, it's 21%, so that's a fifth of students, and at the Dean campus, 27, so a little bit over 1/4. So I think maybe, you know, I am of the opinion, I do think that sometimes programming and courses offered are more important than maybe buildings, and I think there's a lot of good orders tonight that were complied with regarding programming, so maybe that's something that could be explored at a later date. But I thank you for sharing the statistics. And I know there was something about a survey, a really good survey. I checked the slides. I don't know if the survey was shared.
I got the slides here.
It's okay, if not, it's fine. But they did have a really good survey. It was asking about all sorts of other things, again, regarding programming and classes offered. I think that's really cool. Thank you.
Councilor Jordan.
I'll defer to Councilor Tallman on this question I'm about to say, but I'm really impressed with these kids. For 27% of them to say, I would be willing to participate in an ROTC program, can you imagine if we could get 27% of the American people to be interested in joining the United States military? I mean, that would be amazing. The U.S. military struggles with recruitment goals to this very day, and we're not getting anywhere near 27% participation. So for these young people to have 27% say they would be interested in participating, I think that's a call to action to allow them to have an opportunity to join the ROTC program there. And I know they used to have a thriving one for quite a number of years with the Air Force, and that was deeply appreciated. So we need to encourage, as a lifestyle opportunity, as a lifelong commitment to citizenship, the opportunity of young people to learn and explore military careers. I am just overwhelmed, and I did not serve in the military, but obviously a lot of people know that I volunteer for military causes and things, but I am just so thoroughly impressed with the devotion to country, the patriotism, the self-sacrifice, the caring about others, the laying down of one's life for your friends. I mean, this is the biblical principle, right? No greater sacrifice can one do than that, than to lay one's life down for your friends. It's just amazing. And for us to instill those type of high ideals and principles of this nation, we can never do it enough. So impressed that we had that number that would say yes. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
You challenging me, Kevin? Is that it? I was really pleased by the numbers. I think that's important to see that. And I talked to a lot of people out there and say that it's probably one of the best things if everybody, by the time every male or female that turned 18 could give maybe just 2 years of their life to the military, service, serving country. I joined, I was still in high school when I joined it, and I was only 17. And I'm thinking today, 17-year-old kid, I'm thinking, I never thought I was going to get through it. I really didn't. And it turned out to be the best thing I ever did in my life. you know, the people I met, the people that I served with, the skills that I learned. It's just something I think that to bring this into the school system, and Kevin, you know as well as I do, I think maybe just 8-10 years ago, we used to have a major that used to take the ROTC kids during either Memorial Day services or Veterans Day services, and they'd have them there, and they'd know the importance of, you know, what the veterans have done for our country, you know, and the importance of serving. So I think it's great. I think it's something that is a good possibility, and a lot of these kids need mentorship, you know, and I think everybody got some kind of email from the schools, and it takes time, but to be a mentor to these young individuals, to say, hey, you know, there's a lot you can do with your life, and it's going to save them from doing some of the bad things that could happen out there, and when they struggle with things with family or with situations they're in. When you get people that can mentor, that been through things, I think that's so important. But I'm really impressed by those numbers, and that's quite a bit, and I really hope that could in the future happen and get back to the ROTC program. It's very beneficial to the schools and to the individuals.
Councilor Rivera.
Just real quick, I don't know if it was mentioned, but I think what they stated, and I just want to make it quick because I feel like I already talked a lot. In the meeting, I do remember, I don't know if you mentioned it, Will, Councilor Puello or Councilor Anderson-Burgos, is that they need a certain amount of students that want to do it to actually start up the program and get the funding for it. And that's the reason why they're not continuing to push it forward. Because it's true, if there's that many kids that are interested in it, it would be good to have. But then at the same time, I run programming, and the only way I can launch a program is if I guarantee to fill 15 seats. If I can't guarantee filling 15 seats, I can't run the program. So I think that might be the issue with regards to why they don't pursue it. But if not, then whatever.
Going further, 15G.
Yep, so 15G, filed by Councilor Mandalano Velez. So what I have here says, in any scenario where a staff member has used such language, they are placed on administrative leave until the incident is investigated, which includes interviews with students that were present at the time. Everything is documented. After the investigation is complete and based on the findings, they have the right to take action, which can include termination of the teacher. Would like to allow Councilor Maldonado Velez to speak on the order if he'd like to.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Anderson-Burgos and Councilor Givner for co-filing this order. This order came from an incident that happened in April of 2022, where in the span of 10 days, there were 2 teachers at the Dean High School that used the N-word either multiple times in one incident or whatnot. And there was a student in particular that really took offense to it, and other students in the process as well, realizing that that is not a right thing to do, which kind of goes along with our anti-racism training order that we talked about earlier. What Councilor Anderson-Burgos is what I have here, that the 2 teachers were on administrative leave. There was the investigation. It did get led to them still keeping their jobs and then having a restorative circle with the students. One of the questions I had, there is sort of a receiver Soto mentioned that there are moments where teachers are terminated if it's something where he sees that it's not working, there really is no self-reflection, there really is no sort of understanding at all or conversation around it, then that would happen. In this case in particular, he didn't seem like that. What was the situation? And the students themselves seemed to not want them to be fired, but that they at least understood the wrongs with using that word, particularly inside the school building. I think, as mentioned before, there's of course a lot of work to do within the school system, making sure that we continue striving to become an anti-racist institution. After the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, I followed up with the parent and other individuals around this incident, and ended up being that the student didn't feel safe, and they ended up transferring outside of Holyoke. So I think again it goes back to say, like, there's a lot of work that we need to do. I commend the student for speaking up. I know I was one growing up, even through high school. Before microaggressions was a term that people use, I would be calling them out. So the power to the student. The last thing I want to say was, so for those students that don't feel like they're able to speak up, and not just the students, the faculty and staff as well. I think Superintendent Soto was mentioning having sort of like anonymous boxes put up at the school, so that students can, not want to say complain, but call in those situations when they do come up, to make sure that they're being addressed and that they feel safe inside the school. Thank you.
Seeing no one further, so motion is that 15A to G are complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Before we get to finance, two things I forgot. This Friday from 5 to 8, there will be the Heart of Holyoke project at 413 Main Street. That's the mural unveiling. There'll be a late file for giving a proclamation to those artists. Also, last meeting I was supposed to bring this up, but I didn't want to forget it again. Open meeting laws, as a reminder. You get an email, and you reply all. You're, in essence, violating the open meeting law. Be careful of those. Orders that are filed here, if there's an order with regards to a certain topic and people coming in to talk on it, if it's outside the scope of the order, just got to be careful on maybe having to file another order to make sure you're in compliance with the open meeting law. So just be careful on that stuff. It's come up again. So I just want to remind people of that. With that, we're on to finance. 16A, Community Finance was referred a settlement agreement for the local 388. Recommend that be adopted.
We could suspend the rules and take up 16C with it.
Second.
Take up C with A as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those. C is the buyback, 125,000, then 2 patrolmen for 125,000. So motion for both be receive, adopt, pass the first reading. Councilor McGivern.
Thanks, President. The Finance Committee met with the Law Department representatives, the attorney who the city hires, Russ, and the local union, along with Chief Pratt, and the mayor was present. In essence, what we learned was the MOU is a one-page. Is that the first 2 articles are just Scribner notes, typos that were corrected. As this happened across all our contracts, Juneteenth has been added to the language. Juneteenth became a paid holiday through state law. It's just catching up with that. And the gist of the contract itself are some salary increases effective going back to July 1st, 2022 for fiscal year 2023. The 3% increase, July 1st of this calendar year, a 2.5% increase. There is a adjustment on new step was added. Step 6 is what it's called. It's a 1.5% above the current step 5. That works out to a $66,525 base salary. And then there's down the road an increase in July 1st of 2024 of an additional 2.5%. The monies that we vote on, which is how the MOA is ratified, is the $125,000 on our item 16C tonight. We asked the chief why there was a surplus in sick leave buyback for the transfer. He said that there were 2 or possibly 3 retirements that were estimated or were expected to happen this year that did not happen this year, so there was a surplus in that line item. The auditor was also with us. $125,000 will be the additional monies needed to cover the increases for this year. After listening to all sides, the Finance Committee recommended that the transfer be adopted, therefore ratifying the MOA itself. We also, Councilor Jordan did note, and we also asked at the Law Department, I believe it was electronically given to us, and hopefully in the future we'll get it as we are deliberating these in committee, but what we call the redlining of the existing contract to show what also is being deleted and what's being replaced. The committee does recommend that we adopt the transfer tonight.
So the motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. The clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for A and C.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Coelho,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Your vote, you approve those. 16B. Hereby, the City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the Regional Economic Development, or REDO project grant, which would be $28,500. There's no match. Motion is receive, adopt, pass first reading. Councilor McGivern.
Mr. President, we had Aaron Vega before the Finance Committee meeting. This is phase 2, round 2 of what is known as the Artery Project. I remember phase 1, when Aaron came in to talk to us about it last year, the startup money for what is now become a very premier destination on High Street. The Artery Project is a pop-up shop type art gallery, art area for where local artists can come, sell their wares, display their art, and so forth. It is doing tremendous to a point where they think it may even end up self-sustaining itself in the near future. This, with no match, this grant will help pay for the cost for the upcoming year, and the committee thought it's fantastic, and we think the Artery is doing a great job. It's right across the street here from City Hall. I think most people know that, but for anybody listening, if you haven't seen it, stop in and you'll be impressed.
Motion is to pass first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Motion to pass the second
Motion
reading.
is passed the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the $28,500.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Coelho,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Your vote, you approve that one. 16D, Command Finance was referred. E911 dispatchers, $125,000 to overtime. Motion is receive, adopt, pass first reading. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an annual vote that we take. In recent years, it's been used this way. A grant comes into the city somewhere in the beginning, middle part of the fiscal year, which is known as the E911 grant. It's worth $125,000, but it's a reimbursable grant. We have to spend the money as a city, meaning we have to budget for the dispatchers, in this case, salary. Once we spend the money, we then can recoup the grant from the state, and we can use that grant, and accordingly with a vote by a presentation by the mayor and a vote by the city council. Chief Pratt was with us. He again is asking that he can use this as the final installment on the overtime monies. He did talk about the OT monies. Pay periods are running about what they were last year, up slightly between $39,000. Usually we see a peak during the summer months when vacations are being used, but he's pretty confident that this will get him through the rest of the year for the pay periods left.
Councilor Rivera.
I just have one clarification because I was there that day for that meeting and I got a gist of it all. But it's just so the money is this right now is this $125,000 the money that we're getting back from the state, or we haven't gotten it back from the state yet?
Good. I may have said that wrong, Mr. President. Good question. This is the $125,000 is the money we budgeted last year.
Yep.
But now that we received and
got it
have
back.
been able to take advantage of the $125,000 in the grant, this has become surplus, so we can transfer it.
So they got the 125 we spent originally, we got it back, and now there's another 125 being put in.
No.
Being transferred.
Being transferred.
We spent the grant money for the salaries. Now we don't need the money we were required to budget.
So there's another.
We can leave it there or spend it somewhere else.
So I guess
Go ahead.
just for me, right? Like we spent 125, so that way we can get reimbursed 125. We got reimbursed 125, and the 125 we got reimbursed, we are reinvesting that 125 again.
No. So the
No?
way, a little confusing.
Yes,
Yeah,
right?
it's like when you say reimbursement, it kind of confuses it, but you're fine. I'll leave it at that. Yes.
I like the way you said it,
Yeah.
Councilor Rivera. I like the way you said it the last time. Yes.
Okay.
The money is spent because there are salaries, they had to be paid. And we had to pay it out of the line item. Now we can use the 125 elsewhere because it becomes a surplus.
So that just for procedure, whenever this happens in any department that we do a match grant, does that money come back to the full budget, or does it go back to that particular department that it was allotted to? Because it's kind of like I'm letting you borrow this money so that you can attain this money, right? And then when you get the money back, you're kind of supposed to put it back.
No. So
I'm just
yeah. So just to be clear on this one, we budget for 911 dispatch, 10 positions.
No, I
125.
understand that.
If we don't get the grant, there's no
We
money
still
other
pay
than
for it.
because it was already paid for in the budget.
Yeah.
Grant comes in, we've already paid for it. We now can say, well, we're going to pay for it with the grant, but it's already been paid for, so we can use the money elsewhere.
Yeah, so I guess for me, what I'm getting to is that like the 125 that we put in, right? Every year we could use that same 125.
Unless it comes in. That's the real
You know what I'm
problem.
saying? So it's like if we paid that one, we say, okay, here we're gonna budget the 125, so you pay it. When the 125 comes in, the
Yeah.
next fiscal year when you apply to that grant again, we should use that same 125 we got back to then reappropriate that
That's the
125
problem.
again.
If it doesn't come back, you don't have the 125.
I know because we're transferring out.
Well, I know, but the whole premise is you got to budget for the positions. If the grant comes in, great. If it doesn't, it is what
Well, in a sense, we are budgeting for the position because the money's coming back because we already budgeted for the position. So when it comes for next fiscal year, we already have the position budgeted for.
Yeah.
We'll just have the money that they reimbursed us to actually put it towards it, and we don't have to every year keep putting another 125. We could use that same 125 recycled.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, it just goes. Just be clear. It goes back into
Instead
the
of-
general fund. If it's left over as surplus, then you use it in the next
Right.
fiscal year. If it was left.
That's just that. It just was just trying to understand that. I'm sorry.
No, it's if I could. There's two ways to look at it, and that is one way. We don't get the 125 up front. We have to spend it and then say,
yes,
to the state, we spent it. Now can we have the 125?
Totally get that.
But the department doesn't get it automatically. It goes that way because that's where it got reimbursed.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor and the department head have to ask us if they can spend it this year, or as the president said, it will go back into the general fund for next year.
Right, they have to ask us to spend it in a different way.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
technically it was allocated for the way it was spent already. And because it was already spent in that way, they can't spend it again in that way because that money's already been spent that way. So that 125 will stay there at the end of the budget, and then it'll come back to the general budget at the end of the year, where we can then reallocate it for the next fiscal year at 125 again. So that way we don't have to continue adding 125 into the budget when we already had that original 125. That's just what I'm thinking, like overall when you're not playing, you know what I'm saying? We're not transferring in and out all the time. And that's just for one particular item. There's a variety of different items that has that issue too. But I just wanted to kind of like.
Councilor Good.
See, and last point, I'm not disagreeing, but the last point is, don't forget, when at the end of the year, if it's left there and it's free cash, we have our friends at DLS that often say, we have a deficit over here, we're going to spend it on your deficit. And then we don't get to reallocate it and it goes away.
All right.
So there's more than one way to look at it.
Okay. That's a different point, but I take that into account. Thank you.
All right. So motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the 125.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Coelho,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Hartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan, Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
I'd just like to know how many cookies Councilor Rivera's eating, because he's got a lot of energy for this time of night.
I'm sorry.
16.
Oh, don't be sorry.
Don't be sorry.
No, don't. 16E, vacation buyback, $61,345 to overtime, hazmat overtime. Recommend be adopted. Motion to receive, adopt, pass first reading. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. Fire chief was before the finance committee. He told us that this is the one reason there's surplus, same as the last transfer in the police department, is I think it was 2 retirements did not occur that were anticipated. The overtime is to get them through the end of the year, the 60,000. The hazmat overtime is by contract, which is just necessary to balance that line item. One of the main reasons in the fire department for the overtime is you're getting near full complement of firefighters, but 7 of our newer firefighters are just have or just about to graduate the academy, and 2 more are going into the academy. When a firefighter's in the academy, they obviously aren't available for duty, and you have to bring someone in to replace them to keep the apparatus open. Finance Committee recommends we adopt the transfer.
See no one further. Motion is to pass first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second
Motion to
reading.
pass the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the 61-345.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tolman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Hartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
With your vote, you approve that one. 16F, 33,000 from various line items to other items. Motion is receive, adopt, pass first reading. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. The chief of police was with us, and this is essentially the end of the year move to balance some line items. The part-time police principal clerks talked to us about how he did not have as many part-time clerks this year because they have some more full-time positions, didn't need as many of the part-time. A couple were vacant, didn't get filled, and therefore that's the larger surplus that sticks out in the transfer. Election, snow removals, education plan dollars just were planned, and that's the that would become free cash at the end of the year, except there is a deficit, going to be a deficit, not large, but in reserves, police principal clerks, bookkeeper, special events and training, and the incentive, which is all those are at the bottom are contractual. With the auditor present, we just said it's a good idea to balance the books now, as opposed to looking for DLS, looking at these as deficits at the sometime during next year's outside audit itself. The police principal clerks goes back to what he told us about the part-time clerks, that there was more need there was more full-time principal clerks, less part-time, but it kind of balances out.
Motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call for yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tolman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Hartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
We vote you approve that one. Want to take up G, H, and I as a package?
Um,
Or or any issue?
Yeah, we can. No, we can. Yeah.
So, spend
G and I go together anyway, so,
G, H,
yes.
and I as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
G, Committee on Finance, order that the Chief of Police, Auditor, Treasurer come before the Finance Committee to review the process of newly hired off-duty blue. Recommend it's been complied with. H, Committee on Finance, invite in Representative Duffy, Senator Vilas, to the council to discuss specific legislative bills that will file on behalf to increase the local aid for various funding formulas affecting the city, complied with. And I is finance, in order that no new road detail shifts be scheduled or provide for any company or department that has an outstanding balance due. Recommend it's been complied with. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. H, very simple, is an order that was both put in the Finance Committee and also into DGR, because Senator Vilas and Rep. Duffy came before DGR, and gave the presentation that is in this, I believe, is Councilor Jordan and a couple other co-signers order originally. We all agreed that it makes no sense to duplicate the conversation in finance, and most of us were at that meeting in DGR. It was well done. G and I go hand in hand. I'll go real quick, was introduced by Councilor Vacant. When we're talking about is police officers being paid for outside duties. And I was her suggestion when there was, and we got some good news and some, light at the end of the tunnel news. But I was her suggestion. It goes back to, I believe, 2020, I believe the order was filed, that if any contractors renege on what they owe the city for paying police officers for whatever type of duties, mostly traffic duties, that the city do not contract with those vendors anymore. So we took that up to go with, we finally had the meeting where we've got the up-to-date status of what is known as paying the salaries of police officers when they perform off-site duty. Essentially, they're performing private duty, but they are police officers no matter 24/7. So the way it works is the city pays, through an account, pays the salaries and gets the money from the vendors that hired them because they need them. Could be the gas and electric, could be a number of different contractors that work, especially working on the streets. So here's the news. It's important, I think, and we'll go through it real quick. But our city treasurer took the lead. Chief Pratt was there. We all know that Katie McCoy, working behind the scenes, was not with us at the meeting. However, we know a lot of this is her work too. Katie is the payroll clerk in the police department, but she understands this better than anyone. The city elected a few years ago to hire a outside company. It was then known as Roll Call Technologies, an LLC. It has since been replaced by another LLC known as Off Duty Blue. They manage the account. They manage the vendors who have to pay the city, and they also the city, with the help of these vendors, instituted a administrative fee. It's a 10% fee. 5% of it pays for the LLC. 5% of it comes into the city to eventually ends up in the general fund, but comes back to the city. So what Rory did with the help of Katie and the chief, he ran through the numbers to where we are now. Since the advent, and this is the most important, of the outside vendor, the outside management company itself, we are at exactly or right around the neighborhood of a $200 deficit, give or take. To me, that's 99% to 100% of what the city should have been doing all along. That means vendors have paid their money. There is no deficit. There's some outstanding invoices, and it's very good news because that's going back at least 3 years. I think it might be a little bit more than 3.5, 4 years. There is a deficit, and that deficit goes back, and a big part of it, to 2009. The dollar deficit is scary because it still shows $160,000. But note that we have collected with that administrative fee, the city's portion, close to close to $120,000. I might be off a little bit on that number, but it's the trend is going in the opposite direction. To alleviate the deficit would require an appropriation. The mayor joined us. The mayor is agreeing next year that he will start taking the initiative to get the deficit off the books by appropriating the dollars that we know. And one of the reasons that we instituted that administrative fee was to, some of this deficit comes from places that are out of business. There was one of them that used police officers off duty a lot was a restaurant at the mall that is no longer there. Kahunaville.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how I could forget that name, Councilor Hartley, but you know. But Kahuna, there's some things out of the control of the city. Councilor Jordan, Councilor Bartley, a number of people asked a lot of questions. Are we going after people who reneged it? These companies are going after them, but they're going after them before they renege on what they owe the city, and they're looking to get the money paid up front, which I think is a plus. There's light at the end of the tunnel with the deficit. We just think the order's been complied with. We thank all involved for a very healthy discussion. Sorry for a long report, but Councilor Anderson Burgos giving a lot of long reports tonight.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah. Do you hear that? You hear that, Juan? Yeah. I'll be brief on this one. I filed this about 2 months ago. We had 3 meetings on this issue, and I feel really confident that we're moving in the right direction, especially with the roll call. What is it called? The roll call. It was roll call. Now it's off-duty blue. The deficit's still there. Rory stated that. Our treasurer stated that from end of July last year or beginning of July to the end of March, we collected about $60,600. So the mayor's seeing that money coming in. That's through the third party person, and I think it's important that this money's gonna be coming in every year. So the mayor's guy hopefully will come forward with a appropriation to try to get this off, because every year we're getting hit with this $160,000. That's off of our free cash with all the other accounts we had. So my intent was to try to get this cleared up, try to find different ways, if we could put it in a special account, if we could put it in some kind of revolving account. But the money actually goes right into the general fund. So the mayor sees that, and hopefully that within, this year, hopefully, and maybe, within a new fiscal year, that we could pay this down so it won't hit us again against our free cash. And I think that's important. So I'm really satisfied with the treasurer, the auditor, and the chief that came in to discuss this, and there's several good questions by our colleagues on this issue.
Councilor Vacan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to quickly say that I'm very happy that my order is complied with, and I'm happiest that the reason it is that we currently have no vendors with bad debt with the city. So the second try on cleaning up that account worked, and I thank everybody involved for having a system now that's working all the way around. Thank you.
Councilor Jordan.
Mr. President, one of the related pieces to the issue about off-duty assignments is the question about, are we really actually capturing our true cost when we assign out the rates? And interesting factoid is the actual workers set the rates. I thought that was kind of interesting. You think that would be something from management would set the rate for how much we actually bill out for the services, but this has been apparently negotiated that they do this. Question becomes now, when we think about the rate, yes, this is the amount of money, and I did ask the question, the answer was yes, which made me feel good, that we're covering 100% of the cost of the wages of the worker that's going out. But the question is, what about these other type of related expenses? These are private detail work. So this is work not for the city, but for the benefit of a private company who is retaining officers for this purpose. So now, effectively, we're serving in between, if you will, a private relationship between the worker and this independent work detail. But the question is, we have liabilities here, right? We have responsibilities that we're not being compensated for and covering these costs. And so I raised questions around liability. For example, obviously people know that I'm on a mantra here about workplace injuries and capturing the true expenses related to workplace injuries. So what would happen in the event the worker became injured while on one of these private duty details? Are we being covered for this? So interestingly, at 4:40 this afternoon, we received an email, some of us, from John Dowd, who is our insurance agent, and he does a very nice job to walk through some of these issues, and I wanted to share this update. One is that the city is self-insured for workers' comp and general liability, and that the city would be responsible for these costs. That they would still be subject to the same statutory benefits had they been fully insured. So when we hear we're self-insured, that's in the plain reading is you pay it yourself, right? So if we have a workers' comp injury, we're paying that out of our own bucket. And as you know, I think it's on page 51 of the budget, we have a line relative to workers' comp cost. So anytime officers are working at the direction of the HPD or City of Holyoke, they would be covered for workers' comp. However, if injuries were caused by a third party while they're in the course of a detail, then the city has a legal right to be reimbursed for the medical bills and lost wages paid for injuries sustained by the officer caused by a third party. So, I mean, the proverbial car blows through the cones as someone's working at a detail. We have an opportunity to be compensated by the insurance company, theoretically, for this injury. Now, of course, if the officer falls down, maybe on his own, no third party involved, we're taking on those costs relative to this person working at private detail. Now, the city needs to be factoring in these costs, and that's not for the admin. Let's be clear. The admin of 10%, 5% is going to the company, Off-Duty Blue, 5% comes to us, but that's to handle the payroll costs and the other administrative accounting perspective of this. That's a very de minimis amount of money, by the way. It's about $2 an hour. These costs need to be considered when we're setting these rates. In addition to the payment rate, we need to have coverage for all of these eventualities. Because if anybody gets injured, it shouldn't be on the taxpayer to pick that up. And I'm interested to learn as we develop this, and I will file an order in light of this email to plumb into all of this further as to what measures we're going to take or have we taken, or is there any record or history of claims relative to these private duty details. You know, somebody is in a bar or something, i.e. Kahunaville, and some patron drunk punches one of our officers or something, and this person's now out for 2 months off the job. You know, who's paying for all this? It shouldn't be John Q. taxpayer, right? And when the third party might be some person who might not have insurance, or maybe they're judgment proof, we're on the hook for that. This is not being compensated for in these rates. What my point in plumbing into this in finance was, the city needs to think more globally about the rates that we're charging so that we're capturing the true cost. So again, these things are not picked up by John Q. taxpayer of Holyoke. Next turns to general liability. If the off-duty officer, God forbids, causes through their own negligence injury or property damage for whatever reason, the city's on the hook for that. Is that being factored into the rates? Is there a policy that is being entered into in these arrangements? Then we have the question of, if the officer themselves isn't negligent but is charged with being negligent by somebody else, we have a right to third-party indemnification and legal costs, but we have to establish a contractual relationship to do that with the people that are coming in as vendors. And that apparently is not occurring currently. So we need to have that tightened up. John Dowd refers to it as a proper risk transfer language in a contract, and that we should create a contract between the city and the third party, i.e. these people that are hiring our officers to do this private duty work. There needs to be certificates of insurance and evidencing proper coverage. City needs to be named as an additional insured. Bottom line is, current rates are covering the wages, but all these incidental costs and risks that the city is taking on appear not to be covered. I would encourage the mayor as the chief executive and the police chief, who should be overseeing all of this, to make sure that the rates that we're charging are reflective of all these costs and that the city is being properly protected financially as good stewards. So it was a very good dialogue. I appreciate the Finance Committee. I thought we plumbed into this pretty good, and we'll do some level of follow-up here on some of these salient points. Thank you.
Seeing no one further, motions that they've been complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Public safety, there was none. Public service, there was none. DGNR, there was none. Charter and rules, Committee on Charter and Rules was referred in order that Lisa Ball, city solicitor, give a legal opinion regarding access to legal opinions recommended has been complied with. Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the legal opinion, it was, excuse me, a request by Councilor Jordan asking around access to legal opinions. So just sort of to the synopsis real quick as to how we can access legal opinions. One, there should be one way is a request from the mayor. A second way is a request from the city council, us as a body. And then the third way would be a request from a city agency or department head upon approval from the mayor. So those are the three ways that we can get official legal opinions. Another sort of subject that came up during that meeting was our assistant solicitor that's assigned to the city council. Just because those are the ways to get written legal opinions, we can also have access to verbal opinions or advice throughout our council meetings. And from that conversation, it turns out, one, that Attorney Bissonnette is sort of the assigned assistant solicitor to our body, but there was a change in 2022 to our ordinances around the solicitor making that assignment versus us as a body deciding which assistant solicitor. So that's another order that will be brought up in the future around who is our assistant solicitor to our body and who chooses. Those are the biggest two things that came from the meeting. I think it was the shortest conversation from the night, good back and forth. And at the end of the day, one thing I mentioned at the end, I channeled Councilor McGivern at the end, and Councilor Jordan agreed, where it's also legal opinions at the end of the day are just opinions from the solicitor's office. Us as the legislative body, we are the ones that make the final choice and votes on certain matters. And of course, if anyone else that was present had anything else to say, you're welcome to.
Seeing no one further, motion that's been complied with. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? On to motions, orders, resolutions. 22 is from Councilor Givner, that the fire avoidance and response plan be provided to the city council and prioritized on the website. So motion we receive, adopt. You want to do it that way, or do you want it to go to committee first, or?
Not necessarily.
All right, so receive, adopt, and send to the fire department?
Yes.
And to Jeffrey to get updated?
Sounds good.
They're good? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 23 is from Councilor Givner, which is traffic safety pledge. Oh boy, it's getting late. I thought it was 9 o'clock, Councilor Bartley. 9 o'clock.
I was hoping.
You said you jinxed it. All right. Pledge be taken by all city employees and officials. What would you like to do with this one?
Send the public safety.
To public safety. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 24 is from Councilor Jordan, that the law department provide the city council with a legal opinion related to documentation ensuring that the CPA committee and the city of Holyoke are not violating anti-aid amendment So this would be receive, referred to legal. Do you want?
I'd like to have it receive, adopted, referred to legal department, want a copy to finance
All right, so receive, adopt
with their results.
to legal, and then copy to finance.
I know Attorney Dignan had done a lot of good research previously, so maybe she'd have already a head start on this. I have one particular case I also forward to her by email I want her to take a look at.
Okay, so
that might help her.
All those in favor?
Yep.
All opposed?
Aye.
25 from Councilor Jordan, Councilor McGee, that we amend 2-156.1 to return the approval of this city solicitor, which was just a report by Councilor Velez. So this will go to ordinance.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 26 from Councilor Jane, Councilor McGee, order that the City Council retain independent legal counsel to work with the City Council and Legal Department to review the rules under the charter and ordinances. So do you want to send this?
I'd like to adopt it, but then send it over to charter and rules.
All right, so receive, how about receive, send to legal and to charter rules, because you have to take it up in charter and rules.
Yeah, absolutely, yep. I would think that's where the work is, and I know the chairman's already, we had a good, nice start to that topic the other night. And we'll have to work, Mr. President, with obviously who we retain, probably maybe work with the law department on who we can put together to help us with all of this.
They'll have to tell us in charter and rules. Okay, so Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, just, does this require a financial?
Well, that's why I'm saying it. I think we have to send it to charter and rules to have legal come back, and then if there's a financial transfer and all that, at least we're going to take it up in committee, and then we'll have to approve something from there if we have to.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, so to charter and rules, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 27 is, or how about 27, 28, 29, 30?
Excuse me, 27 and 28, if we close the package.
27,
Before
28 is the
finance.
package. B as well, you're saying? All right, so hold on, we'll shift around here. 27, 28, and late file B as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
So 27 is 1,000 from supplies to overtime. 28 is 30,000 from heavy motor equipment operator to traffic lanes, and then late file B is 82,800 from sick leave buyback, vacation buyback to energy, legal defense, medical, in-state travel, so on and so forth. All these to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 229, which is $19,355.33 from sergeants to injured on duty, which that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Motion to receive, adopt, pass first reading. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're just doing an accounting move, as we call it, to show that when they fight up public safety employees off duty for short period or long period of time, that the salary, rightfully so, given to them comes out of an injured on duty salary, just to account for the lack of person available for the respective chiefs.
So motion is passed the first reading.
Just want to, you have to dig out my budget, but 51,107, Joe, do we know what line that is? Because I don't think we have 8 sergeants out, because I think we only have
107 is patrolman.
Patrol, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. So that's patrol. Didn't make that part of it didn't make the agenda, so it's
Scrivener's error.
Yeah, Scrivener's error.
Sorry.
No problem.
Gonna use that to the end of the year.
Scrivener's getting pretty big in these areas.
Oh, I know.
It's a big eraser.
Agency for Scribner.
That's a favorite one for lawyers.
We'd like to get that number down to maybe 4 or 5, right, Kevin?
Good luck.
That'd be nice.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to pass the second reading.
Well, pass first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Second.
Motion is passed the second reading. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Coelho,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Benny Rivera,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Yes.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
We've already approved that one. 30, or at the position of Chief Administration and Financial Officer be created and added
Ordinance.
to Section A to ordinance. All those.
Discussion?
Yep.
Just, and I, not debate, just discussion, but certainly I agree. And I think a lot of us know that we got to start heading towards something like this, but this will also have an impact on the charter. And I think we got to keep that in mind as we're creating an ordinance, that we got to look at the charter with it, because the way we're set up now, and it's a checks and balance situation with an elected treasurer and an auditor appointed by the council, and so on and so forth.
About
This
ordinance
person-
copy to charter.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilman Riley.
How about a friendly amendment to ordinance and send it to the law department to verify whether or not we need a home rule petition or a charter change, so they can properly advise the ordinance committee?
So, to ordinance, copy to legal, copy to charter and rules.
And the mayor
That
can,
covered it all.
Mr. President?
and the mayor
Well, I-
can, and the mayor can veto that.
Yeah. So, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. And my additional question is, do we need a ballot question? Because at one point, we had crafted one, or at least the concept of one, to put before the voters regarding consolidating a couple of positions. So if that could get sent to legal too, to review, that would be great.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So that one. 31 from Councilor Paul, Councilor Rivera, that a do not block the box be painted in front of 403
Ordinance.
Main to ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 32 from Councilor Rivera, order that the representatives from the ambulance service company be asked to come to public safety to share any information or data they have collected regarding overdoses within the city. So to public safety.
Yeah, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, Councilor Bacon, sorry.
Sorry, I know it's awkward being remote, and I won't be much longer. Thank you. I would just like to offer that the police department has given us those statistics in the past, so you might want to send it to them also.
All right, so with a copy to the police.
Real quick on clarification, to what? For them to provide us data?
Yeah, if they have it.
Sure, no problem. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
So all those in
See them
favor?
present the slideshow. Why
All
not?
those opposed?
Aye.
33, order that the mayor work with a collaboration with the school department, school committee, council to explore ways to expand education opportunities, provide a dean tech. So this would go to joint committee.
No.
No?
That's just a copy to the mayor.
All right, so just receive, refer to mayor.
Yep.
It's a good order, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate
It
that.
really is. I'd be, can I be a co-sponsor?
Yes, of course. I would
So-
love
so-
that.
it's a great
Hopefully
order.
we'll get the pendulum moving a lot faster, right?
Let's hope. Well,
Yeah,
you're
you
the,
go.
well, you're the man with the cloud.
In country.
Nah, man.
I'm the side man over here. But I would just say thank you for filing this, because this is another thing that a lot of vocational schools do in the evenings and stuff, is to do programs for adult learners that would like to go back in the evening. And if we could get some sort of evening program for people to pick up trades, this could be really a game changer for a lot of our residents to pick up a trade. It isn't just about the kids. It's also the adults, too, that we could really be utilizing this. So much potential here, either through a grant or other things that we could do. You could be making the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters, mechanics. It's a great order.
All right, so adding Councilor Jordan, Councilor McGivern.
I'd love to be added. It's a great order, but I just hope the motion is that we adopt this, because it deserves being adopted, plus it's our rules, and send it to the mayor.
Thank you for that.
Receive, adopt, send to the mayor, adding those councilors.
See what happens when we work together?
I know.
It's the cookies, Izzy. It's the cookies.
Not good to my belly.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
34 for Councilor Rivera, or that the mayor organize advisory committee to work in collaboration with the Public Health Department and Public Safety Committee to work on coordinating reentry services for those reentering society. What would you like for this one?
So, adopt copies, send the copy to the mayor, and then send it to public safety so that we can have some discussion on it. So that way I can elaborate some more to the mayor and the public health department around an ad hoc?
Ad hoc?
Yeah,
Ad
type
hoc
of
committee.
committee that would help. And the idea behind it for me is that, like, we understand that there's over a couple $1 million that are coming in with regards to helping out people that are struggling with substance abuse issues, specifically the opioid epidemic. And then we also have funding from cannabis dollars that we could use for substance abuse. So it's like, in my experience, a lot of people that are suffering from substance abuse suffer from a variety. It's more than just one thing. It's mental health, substance abuse, or like homelessness, substance abuse. And they are usually almost always found at a point where they're reentering society again, whether you're coming out of a prison, a shelter, or a mental health facility. So it's, if we could possibly partner with the sheriff's department, who already runs a reentry department in Springfield, but can't set up a whole new satellite station here, with some of that money, if we're able to set up a department where they can help staff it with CHD or BHN and other people. But again, we would need the committee to come together to design and plan that out. I would like to be a part of that if that's cool. If not, then that's totally cool too. I get it. But it's just to start the works, to lay down a foundation when the money does come. We already have, it doesn't have to be spent that way, but at least there is an idea of how we want to go or in what direction we want to go. So that was the purpose kind of like behind with this. And thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a fabulous order, and if I'd be honored to be added on to this order. I think it's very important to get people help when they're, re-entering society, no matter where they came from, especially people that are struggling and they're on the streets and are leaving shelters. How do they turn their lives around? How do they get better? So I'll be happy to add my name on that.
Any Councilor Tallman, Councilor McGivern.
The sheriff already rents a portion of the annex building next door, which houses a number of services provided through the state itself, and I think it would make sense. In AISS is the after incarceration services. I think it's still on State Street in Springfield.
Yes, it's now called after. It's not incarceration anymore. It's after something support services. They don't use incarceration anymore. I don't know. I know why, but I don't know what the word is. But yeah, they have. I have to say, through my process, I didn't really utilize the services that were offered there. But I have to say that, like, when you look across the country, the services that are offered to people that are returning back to society, they are A+. Like they're some of the best that's out there. Countrywide, other people from other states come to AISS to see the model that they put together. So ultimately, it's like, if we can somewhat build off of what is already happening there, and we don't have to own it, we can just kind of like create it, and everyone else can come in and collaborate, sort of like how they do the Holyoke Safe and Successful Youth Initiative grant. It would be great for us as a city to move forward to provide these services for anybody re-entering society. And again, sorry for taking so much. The cookies, man, I guess. The yellow cream.
Keep on eating them.
It's a tremendous program, and even a satellite in perhaps the same space would make sense. But absolutely, be great to have a little bit more in Holyoke than not have to have our folks go all the way to Springfield.
That's why I didn't go to the program.
So motion is to receive, refer to the mayor, Public Health Department, and Public Safety Committee, adding Councilor Tallman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
35 from Councilor Vacan, order that Lanian Drive and the remaining portion of Richard E. Drive be accepted as a city street.
So I'd like to refer this to the city engineer, and I will coordinate with him to get the required petitions.
Okay, so motion is received, refer to the city engineer. All those in favor?
The Board of Public Works Commission, too.
Yeah, and Board of Public Works. I couldn't remember that. Thanks, Councilor McGivern. And Board of Public Works. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
36 from Councilor Vacan, order that we seek assistance from the Pioneer Valley Commission to evaluate and address the longstanding traffic problems at Homestead Ave. Motion would be to,
If we could receive, adopt, and refer to the mayor and ask him if he's willing to go that route, and also copy it to public safety, please.
all right, so motion is receive, adopt, send to the mayor, copy to public safety.
Mr.
President? Counselor Jordan?
Could I be added as a co-sponsor? I also received an email request about this topic from a constituent, so I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Adding Counselor Jordan.
Thank you.
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, and I'm going to add my name to it as well, and I just want to make note that we do have some potentially good news, Mr. President, something I think you've been involved with and several has been involved with relative to the crosswalk on Homestead Avenue leading to the main gate at HCC. We've only been asking for that for 6 years now, and apparently it looks like it's coming to fruition. I had a meeting whatever it was recently, and so it looks with the alarm division, and it looks like that is happening this spring. So hallelujah to that.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yep.
Anyone further? So motion is receive, adopt, send to the mayor, and copy to public safety. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Late file C. We've already done the other late files. For myself, order that the city council present proclamations to the artists for the Heart of Hoyoke project.
Receive and adopt.
Motion be to suspend the rules, take up final action. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion is receive and adopt.
Yep.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
That is it. Motion is
Motion to adjourn.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Have a good evening.